An entitled psycho teacher decides to fail me in my class, all because she doesn't like the work that I created for the class. So I decided to get some revenge by not only making her life a living nightmare as my teacher, but also for ruining her career in the process. Here's what happened. Okay, so this occurred way back in my junior year of high school. I was in a computer class that was very general, where we learned how to type, but also got a little familiar with stuff like Adobe Photoshop and Music Studio. The teacher who normally taught the class had a baby prior to the semester that I took the class. So, a substitute teacher covered her entire maternity leave. Now, this substitute was an absolute jerk. The fun and entertainment I got from the original teacher's typing class that I had taken the semester before was now replaced by an evil woman who expected us to be professionals at programs we had only just learned about. I mean, nobody in the class had higher than a B average. She dumped on my first Photoshop assignment because she didn't like the subject matter. For reference, it was a mech robot with a Gundam-inspired energy sword that I drew and colored by hand, taking me nearly a month to complete. I used Photoshop to clean up some of the rough edges and make it look even more realistic, which, if I'm being completely honest, is a feat that I should have been awarded high marks for. But because she hated the subject matter, I got a D+ on that assignment. The next week, we started our segment on Music Studio. Her assignment was to create a music clip that sounded weird or funny. I found a synthwave in the program labeled Final Crash, and I played it to myself, a descending crescendo followed by a final beat in an upbeat chord. Using the software, I created a loop of this sound clip and reversed it, playing the sound forward and reversed in repeating patterns for about 15 seconds. Now, my fellow students found the resulting music to be hilarious, but the teacher absolutely hated it, even going into dry heaves at the sound of it. She gave me a 0 on the assignment and then threatened me with detention if I ever played the sound again. I was already on the brink of failing my class prior to this because of the way she was grading my work, so this was the perfect reason for me to take my revenge. Now, I didn't mind a few detentions from a teacher I disliked if it meant making her life a living nightmare for a few weeks, as just a taste of what she had put me through. Now, a friend of mine worked in IT for the school as part of his aspirations to get a computer science degree. I gave him the offending sound clip and he notified the teacher that he needed to perform an update on her computer during her lunch break. Now, my class was after her lunch, so I got to see my revenge in all of its glory. My friend then went into the sound files of her computer and replaced all of her notification sounds with a 3-second piece of this sound clip. Every time she received an email, instant message, or any other warning from her computer, this sound would play at nearly maximum volume. The added bonus being that to prevent students from tampering with students' computers, they needed to input an IT password to access the control panels and turn it off. And this was an IT password that they didn't share with substitute teachers, all because of access to grading and transcripts. Well, when this happened, the substitute teacher had a complete meltdown, literally only after 2 emails from IT about the computer update. At this point, she sent me to the office and actually tried to have me expelled because of the sound, but our principal laughed her out of the office. The substitute teacher then unplugged her computer and instead took emails and instant messages on her phone for the entire duration of the final 2 weeks of class. In fact, the other students in my class used to play the sound clip from their computers just to annoy her. We even managed to get the sound clip played during the morning announcements, which I can only imagine made her throw things at the television. When the original teacher returned from her maternity leave at the beginning of my senior year, she changed my grade in the previous semester's class from a D to an A+ after reviewing my assignments, which meant that my revenge was achieved. And also, as icing on the cake, this substitute was asked not to return to my school district as a substitute, quite literally for the rest of her teaching career. Man, I love this story because seriously, that is so messed up. She literally was just gonna fail you because she didn't like what you were creating. And I can understand if you did it wrong and she didn't like it, but just to not like it straight up and be like, that's why I'm gonna fail you. It's like, come on, how is that fair? But thankfully, you had a teacher that had your back and made everything right by giving you the grade that you deserved, because that substitute teacher absolutely was out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my best friend with her wedding simply because she didn't make me a bridesmaid? Because now I'm being asked to do all this stuff that I honestly don't want to do if I'm not in her bridal party, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my best friend and I, who I will call May, have been close friends since middle school. We've talked about being in each other's weddings, so when she got engaged last year, I assumed I would be a bridesmaid. Well, she recently asked me to help with the wedding planning, but when she showed me the list of her bridal party, I wasn't on the list. I asked why, and she got awkward and said that she had to make some choices. The party included her sister, her fiance's sister, and a few newer friends that she's known for a couple of years. And she says that she wanted a small party. Now, I did not want to make it a big deal, so I congratulated her, and I figured I'd still be a guest. But then she started asking asking me for a lot of help. Things like dress shopping, DIY decorations, venue hunting, making party favors, etc. I finally told her, hey, I love you, but I still feel weird doing all of this when I'm not even a bridesmaid. She then got angry with me and said that she thought that I'd still want to be involved because we're best friends. I told her I would still be at the wedding, but I wasn't going to do all this extra work when she didn't even consider me close enough to be at her bridal party. And now she and some of our mutual friends are giving me the cold shoulder, saying I'm being petty and making the wedding about me, but I am not going to be doing bridesmaid level work if I'm not going to be one. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, you're definitely not the jerk here because your friend's being a complete idiot. She literally wants free labor out of you because either her bridesmaids don't want to do the work or she doesn't want to ask them. And this is not about you being her best friend or anything like that. If you really did mean that much to her, you'd be a bridesmaid after all. In my opinion, this has everything to do with the fact that she just can't find anyone to help her out and she's using you as some way of getting all this stuff done because it's pretty obvious that no one else is stepping up in her party at all. So no, you're not the jerk because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for wanting to move my pregnant friend out of my house after it's become abundantly clear that she is absolutely taking advantage of me? Here's what happened. Okay, so I had a friend move in with me while I was away. She decided to get pregnant, but she has no job interviews lined up, literally nothing. She has no car seat for the baby, and no baby items. When she told me she was pregnant, she said, "Oh, we're both having boys, we can share." I then laughed and I told her, I have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with a squatter who refuses to get a job, and I'm not sharing any of my baby's new stuff, but I will grab some things from a store called Savers. She then called me the biggest jerk there was and acted like we were supposed to be close, but we are not that close. We have a regular friendship, but when she fell on hard times, I wanted to help as much as I could because I understand that life is hard. The deal was that she would get a job and hustle until she had enough money to move out. I told her that she didn't need to pay rent so that she could save for her own place, but she needed to help clean up. I mean, I am a neat freak and I'm always cleaning something up. Well, today I asked her how much she had saved, and she said to me, I've saved $0. I spent $7,000 today on everything I needed. And I was shocked. I asked her, wait, $7,000 on what? Nothing for a newborn costs that much. Well, she had bought all luxury baby items. Then she told me, if you hadn't been such a selfish jerk and shared everything, I wouldn't have resorted to this. At that point, I told her she had 30 days to get her situation together. Now she's saying I'm a piece of garbage for kicking a pregnant woman out. I told her to return the luxury items and get affordable things instead. There's even a community baby shower where we live that happens every 2 months, but she refused. I then told her that if she had focused on getting a place before having a baby, she would be stable enough to afford what she needed. But now she's calling me a jerk and saying that I'm an untrue friend. I then wrote down an itemized list of everything I pay for and everything I've helped her with, and she got mad at me for keeping track. I told her, this is just your list. If I add my kids, it's even more. And that's when she finally realized she doesn't know how she's going to manage as a single mom. So I told her again, return the expensive things, get baby items that fit her budget, and then she can stay. But she still refuses and insists that I'm a jerk for kicking her and her newborn out. I totally get that she may be taking advantage of me, but I do feel guilty about the situation, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't blame you for telling her that she's got to get her life together, and I think part of that is her moving out of your house. Seriously, this lady has no job, she has no job prospects, she barely has any money, and so she goes to you pretending like you're gonna help take care of her baby? Like seriously, what's going on right now? That is insane. She needs to get a grip and get a job, not mooch off of you and expect you to pick up the slack for her. So no, you're not the jerk for wanting her to go because honestly, I would feel the exact same way. Today, I messed up by giving out a favor to people that were not my friends because as a result, I found myself incredibly frustrated, realizing that this was a mistake from the very beginning. Here's what happened. So this happened when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I live in Philadelphia and my company gave us the day off if we planned to attend the parade. My plan was to see the parade with my roommate, hop in the car with her after, and then drop her at her mom's in New Jersey on my way to my mom's in New York. The day before the parade, I was in a Teams meeting with some coworkers when this girl, who we will call Juniper for the sake of the story, mentioned she wanted to go to the parade but would have to travel from Jersey to Philadelphia and then from Philly to New York to do so. She and I are friendly but not friends, but for some reason I decided to extend a favor, and I mentioned to her that depending where in New York, I could just drop her off on my way to my mom's since I was planning on going there anyways. I also mentioned we would just have to make a quick pit stop in Jersey to drop my roommate off as well. I asked her where she would need to be dropped off and she tells me Times Square. Now this is technically on my way, but I'm only going past the city, not through it, not to mention all the tolls. And she tells me this without offering to help pay for any of the tolls. So I tell her that the best I could do is drop them at a train station close to the outskirts. She told me that would be awesome and that she would let me know if she ended up attending the parade or not. The next morning of the parade, I see a message from her asking if this other girl, we'll call her Emily, could also come along. Now, I know of this girl and I have met her a few times, but I don't work with her directly. However, I know she and Juniper are really good friends. So I tell Juniper that if she and Emily are going to the same place, then it's fine. A couple hours later, she messages me again. They're not coming to the parade, but coincidentally, the hotel they are both staying at is only 30 minutes from where I'm dropping off my roommate, and then asked me if I wouldn't mind picking them up from there. I definitely told her that wasn't going to work for me and that I was sorry she was going to miss the parade. But you know what? I definitely learned my lesson. Even if we're friendly coworkers, don't extend favors to people who aren't your friends, because chances are it's not going to go well. Oh wow, they really took advantage of you. That seriously sucks. I honestly can't stand when people do something like this. They know that you have plans and they're like, oh, can I tag along? And then suddenly your plans get morphed into some other version of it that you did not want to do. So despite that, I love the fact that you basically said, no, I'm not going to drive out of my way, and yes, you're going to have to figure out something else. Because what they were asking is so ridiculous, and in my opinion, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my coworker a ride to work after he literally has been late to my car every morning consistently? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend are both 19-year-old males, and we also happen to work together. In fact, I got him a job at the small company where I worked. When I first recommended him to my boss, it was because I thought it would be a temporary position over the Christmas rush. But guess what? It wasn't. My main problem comes from the fact that he doesn't have a driver's license. I was okay with the idea of driving him to and from work for a couple of months, even though he has a habit of always being a couple minutes late. And this isn't a huge deal at our company because we get paid hourly for a job that doesn't have a set time frame. Lately though, he's been consistently at least 10 minutes late. And while this isn't a big deal for the boss, I hate sitting in my car in front of his house for that long. I like to get work over with as soon as possible. And while those 10 minutes aren't going to change my life, I would rather get 10 extra minutes at home than sitting in a car. But today I made up my mind that I wasn't going to ignore his tardiness. I texted him 20 minutes beforehand to ask if he would be ready in 20 minutes. He said yes, and I knew it was probably a slight exaggeration, so I took my time leaving the house. He literally got a good extra 5 to 10 minute start. But then when I got to his house, I texted him to tell him I was there, and lo and behold, I got no reply. Fast forward 10 minutes later and he finally appears. Usually he starts telling me about his day and I kind of get over my anger, but this time I stuck to what I told myself and I let him know that I didn't want to drive him anymore. I wasn't rude, I didn't yell or anything like that. I just said, I'm sorry, I don't want to drive you to work anymore because you're always late. He then started saying that it wasn't his fault and that he was busy. In the conversation, I also mentioned that things would be different if he wasn't old enough to get a license and his parents hadn't promised him a car as soon as he got the driver's license. He then told me that every time I brought up the driver's license thing, it only stresses him out. He kind of phrased it like he thought I brought it up out of concern, which I do every once in a while, but this time it was because he's making me late when he could very well get a driver's license and drive himself. After I made my feelings known, the car ride was quiet. Then at work and on the way home, it was also quiet. So basically, I think he got mad about the fact that I was done waiting around for him, and I really don't think I'm in the wrong, but maybe I'm missing something here. What should I do? Oh man, this is a really annoying story. In my opinion, you did the right thing because this guy did not respect you. This guy is 10 minutes late every single time you pick him up. He doesn't respect you or your time, and he's always coming up with some kind of excuse. Also, this guy could easily get a license, like come on. And sure, he's probably stressed out about it, but this is the result of him being lazy and not getting it done. And yes, I really do think he's being lazy and he's just making up excuses. So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to give him a ride, because if I was in your shoes, I would be taking the same route, because his behavior in my opinion is unacceptable. Today, I messed up by making fun of my dad's past relationships, as he has had a lot. But because of this harmless joke, I find out that my mom cheated on my dad way back in the day, and now I literally am looking at everything in my life way differently. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad recently got a girlfriend, and it seems like it's going well. I mean, he's been in way too many relationships for me to even keep count. With girlfriends, with boyfriends, I mean so many people. I was on a call with him today, I thought about him, and I decided it would be nice, and I made a joke that essentially pointed out just that. It was something to the effect of, what is this, your 20th? The thing is, my dad is a serial gossiper. Despite me being his son, he will tell me all about his current relationships all the time. But I will emphasize current relationships because apparently I didn't know about the absolute massive ton of relationships that ended badly for him. He started talking about why he's blown through so many partners, ignoring red flags, them cheating, stuff like that. Then he suddenly explained that when I was really young, he had a boyfriend boyfriend that he stuck with for a while. They seemed perfect for each other, but then the boyfriend suddenly passed away in a car accident. At that point, he started getting really emotional, still going through all of his relationships in a random order. When he got to my mom, who I love a lot, he said that she actually cheated on him with some dude he was in a band with in his teenage years, and it made him feel like chopped liver. Now, I had no idea this apparently happened, and I'm pretty sensitive about cheating since my boyfriend of 4 years cheated on me. So I made him pause here and I made him explain further. After we ended our call, I called my mom up. I chatted normally for a bit before I finally brought up that my dad told me she cheated on him. And you know what? She said it was true, but he made a promise to not tell me, so she was very pissed off about that. She explained that the reason was because my dad was pretty awful to her after he found out that she was pregnant, and she just couldn't build the confidence to break up with him because somehow he'd always find ways to avoid the topic. Plus, this was the father of her child. It put more pressure on them to stay together. She said she knew it was wrong, but this was about 20 years ago, and she wouldn't be so hesitant to break up with a guy now. Anyways, I just sat here absorbing my parents' intense relationship drama and likely made the two of them mad at each other. I feel drained and it's still the morning, and I also don't know if me disregarding the fact that my mom cheated is me being a hypocrite when I usually despise cheating. So at this point, I'm honestly feeling so confused and I don't know what to do. Oh man, I can only imagine how much this sucks because you just learned a lot more information than you wanted to know. Like here you were just trying to have a good conversation with your dad and you make a silly joke and then suddenly you're like, oh wow, my mom's a cheater, this is awful. So yeah, this definitely is a sketchy situation and hopefully this all blows over in some kind of way because I can imagine this is going to be awkward for quite a while. An entitled client demands that I delete all their files on record as they are so unsatisfied with a sign that they literally approve for their business. So I decided to maliciously comply by deleting everything I had on file relating to their business, putting them in a situation that they truly regretted. Here's what happened. Quite a few years ago, I was the senior graphic designer for a sign shop. This one customer was always a pain in the butt, but you get that and you try to keep the returning client happy. One day, the owner sent over a design for a new sign to go on a scoreboard as part of their sponsorship package at a local sports oval, and this meant we invoiced the football club and not them. Now, their logo is maroon and she wanted a red background when usually it was white. I told her that I wouldn't recommend it because for one, you would not be able to read it from a distance, like across the other side of the oval, because the colors were too close, and secondly, it would look awful, even though I said that last part a bit more professionally. Usually, we would also just make the logo all white, but she insisted that she wanted the maroon one. Well, the sign was made and installed, and because I've been doing this job for a long time, it kinda looked like crap. But oh well, we were paid, the client was happy, and then we moved on. A few months later, she asked for another sign to replace it, as apparently it is hard to see from a distance, and her husband, also working in the business, is not happy. And it's like, yeah, go figure, lady. She also says that we should do it free of charge because it looks like crap and that it's my fault. And remember, the football club had paid for it. So I politely tell her no because guess what? She approved the design. So her husband writes me a harsh email about how I should never have made it in that color and that it's not in line with his company's brand, stating that I need to replace it. I got the feeling that his wife was blaming me, so I sent him the receipts, namely the whole email chain with my recommendations, as well as her insistence and approvals. I said no, I will not be replacing it free of charge. Shortly afterwards, the wife writes me another email saying they will never use my business again, demanding that I delete all their files right now. And I think to myself, thank you and done. Hallelujah, I will never have to deal with her ever again. Although deep down I knew that would not be the case, as we also sponsored that sports oval. The club used us for all their signs and printing, and I knew that I would need to have their logo for something sometime in the future, but despite all of that and knowing this, I decided to maliciously comply, deleting everything as they requested, because I knew that this would blow up in their face in a hilarious fashion. Now, we just can't use a JPEG or PNG file. We need special files that I had to set up for their business, all on brand to print consistently at the right color, like years worth of files, adverts, and signs. This means it can be very easy for us to just slot in pre-designed work when needed, literally a 5-minute job in some cases. Well, fast forward maybe a few months later, and the football club needs their program printed, with all the sponsors included, and it was at this moment my time came along to finally shine. I was truly so happy. I mentioned to my contact that I need this business logo and advert, and he said that he will get them to send it through. Now, I'm not sure why, but they never sent it through to me on time. It was so strange. So I sent printing proofs without this particular logo or advert added, and mentioned I still didn't have it, and if they wanted this printed in time, I needed it as soon as possible. I was kind of hoping that I could print it without them in it, but the football club was diligent, and they wanted them in. I then got a short message from this business saying to just just added in their usual advert. And it's like, what do you mean? The one you told me to delete a few months back? Sorry, I don't have it. You need to send me a print-ready file in this size. Well, fast forward about 2 weeks later, and I finally got the ad to put in, and they mentioned to keep it on file for future designs. In fact, I heard that they had to pay someone to design up something for them. They also got someone else to make up a new sign to replace the crap one. In fact, they would have had to pay for that too, as the club never ordered one through us. And now, anytime I drive past their business, I can't help but stick my finger up and just laugh at these people, because these guys were truly absolute morons. Yeah, these people truly are super stupid. First of all, they completely ruin their design, and then they sit there and try to be like, oh man, I can't believe it. This sign sucks. You need to change it for free. And it's like, no dude, I literally tried to change it last time, and you people reprimanded me. Why should I have to go through that again just to get your approval on something you shouldn't have done? And I don't blame the original poster. They literally got paid and everybody was happy at the end of the day, especially that idiot who was like, just do it exactly how I say. Like, hang on a second, this is not anybody's fault except for her. And now she's seriously trying to shift the blame on you? Like, no, I don't think so. So yeah, I love the way you got back at these people, because their attitude was absolutely uncalled for. My entitled mother steals my food and drinks from me, and then demands that I pay her back after I take my food back. And at this point, I'm so frustrated and annoyed that I seriously don't know what to do. So for a bit of backstory, I'm 21 years old, and I live with my parents, as the economy right now is insane, and finding a place to live without being unable to still buy food and water is near impossible where I live. Now, my mother's the type who feels entitled to anything in the house, even while I'm living with her, and despite the items having been bought with my money, it's still under her roof. Back in September of last year, I bought a mini fridge for my bedroom. I buy my own foods and drinks, as they're better for my diet than the foods my parents buy. Not to mention, my mother always tells me to pay her back for any food of theirs that I eat, so I just buy my own stuff and get it over with. I haven't had any issues with anyone else trying to take my food or drinks since I got it, so I never thought that I would need to take precautions. That is, until a couple of weeks ago. I had bought a small cheesecake from the grocery store, as I'd been craving it and I had the money to be able to get it. I also got a pack of sodas just to have for myself whenever I want. I had just left home to go to work, and I didn't think I'd have any worries. After getting home from a long day, I planned to shower and sit down with my treat and maybe just watch a nice movie. But when I looked in the fridge to grab a water, the cheesecake and 4 sodas were missing. I had asked my fiance if she had eaten the cheesecake or drank any of the sodas, and she said that she had taken a long shower and napped all day, as her day before had been really exhausting to say the least. So I checked the family fridge, and what do I find? I find my missing cheesecake and my sodas. And when I saw that, I was very upset. I grabbed them all and I placed them back in my fridge before asking around to see who took it. My brother was in school all day, and my dad had apparently taken up an extra shift at work, so that just left my mother. But when I asked her, she acted offended that I would accuse her of theft, so I just decided to leave it alone. It was safely back with me, and I planned to share the treat with my fiance and drink a soda and just leave it behind me. The next day, my mother burst into my room, screaming at me for stealing from her. I had just woken up and wasn't fully registering what was happening. My fiance, however, was still asleep, and the noise woke her up in a panic. I asked what this was all about, and she screamed at me about the cheesecake and the sodas, and how it was expensive to get, and how dare I take that away. She was planning to eat it that night with my dad and watch some movies with him, as it was his first days off in a week. Instead of being angry, I actually started laughing. This wasn't the first time she'd accused me of stealing from her after she took it from me. This did not go over well with my mother, and she screeched again and again about me giving it back to her. I laughed harder and had to catch my breath. I told her that I had bought them, and that we had already eaten the cheesecake the night prior, and that I'm keeping my sodas. She screamed that I better pay her back for the things that I stole from her. She also said that the next time she buys things, she's gonna keep count of exactly how much she has, so that she knows when I steal again. I then stood up and opened my bag, where I had the receipt from when I bought the items, and right then I shoved it right in her face. I told her I'd bought them as a little treat for myself for working so much, and that she wasn't getting any of it. And then I had the best idea I ever had. I told her I was gonna get another cheesecake because I had some cash that could pay for it, and she wasn't gonna get any of that one either. Then I turned to my fiance and I told her to grab my phone and see how much a fridge lock would cost. Needless to say, my mother was not happy about me trying to put a lock lock on my fridge in her house, stating that I don't have permission. So I reminded her that her house or not, it was my fridge. I paid for it, and I can lock it if I want to. My fiance then told me I could get a fridge lock online for cheap and that it would be delivered in 2 days. So I ordered it right in front of my mother and then told her that since I didn't have work for a couple of days, I would be keeping an eye on all of my things. She eventually stomped out of my room in a fit of rage and screeched to my dad about how disrespectful her daughter was and how dare I speak to her like that. And I have laughed about it pretty much every day since then. And when the lock came in, I put it on my fridge immediately. And now everywhere I go, whether I'm going to work or even to the bathroom, the keys go with me, unless my fiance is staying home. And if that's what's happening, then she's gonna keep the keys. So hopefully this will prevent my mom from stealing from me in the future. Your mom sounds so annoying. I mean, she literally went into your fridge and stole your food and then tried to pretend like, oh, I bought this. This is mine. Like, no, it's not. You literally took it out of their fridge. And then also in that same sentence to be like, you better pay me back for taking my stuff. Like, no, that's not how this is gonna work. And you know what? If I was in the original poster's shoes, I absolutely would have put a lock on my fridge as well. The mom in this story sounds crazy, and it's just so bizarre to me that someone could seriously act like that. I think it's also worth mentioning that you should really check the plug every now and then, because based on the mom's behavior, I can absolutely see them trying to like unplug the fridge or something like that just to make your food and your treats all go bad. And that would be a nightmare to deal with. Can you imagine spending all this money on food just for her to spoil and ruin all of it in one go? Maybe even investing in some kind of lock on your room itself. I'm sure she would probably like go nuts if you did that, but I mean, how else are you able to have any kind of privacy in there? So hopefully one day your fiance as well as yourself can get out of that house. Your mom does not sound like a nice person, and I seriously don't see you living there long term. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Today I messed up by stealing my daughter's chocolate and blaming it on a leprechaun. And now as a result, she has set up a trap for this supposed leprechaun, and I am stuck in this facade trying to not let off that I definitely stole her chocolate. Here's what happened. So this happened today, and I'm not exactly proud of it, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only parent who has secretly eaten one of their kids' candies and then tried to play it off as dumb. So my daughter got these small boxes of chocolate for Easter. I have to split custody arrangement, so they're with me for half the week and then go to their mom's. And while they were away, I craved some snacks, and that's right when I spotted my daughter's chocolate. My 10-year-old hadn't opened hers yet, so that was a no-go. But my 4-year-old had already eaten 2 and left 1 dark chocolate, as well as 1 milk chocolate piece behind. She seemed to have forgotten about it, instead going for chocolates from Easter eggs that she refused to call kisses, because in her mind they're chocolates, not kisses. Now she can be quite stubborn, and as much as I don't believe in the superstitions, I'm told all the time that it's appropriate that she's a redhead. Fast forward to when the girls returned from their mom's place today, and after dinner, my 4-year-old asked for dessert. I showed her the treat basket, and she immediately grabbed her box of chocolates. She opened it and frowned and said to me, "Where's my other chocolate? I had 2, but now there's only 1." Pretending like I didn't know anything, I asked her if she wanted something else. But as I mentioned earlier, my little one is as stubborn as they come. Suddenly she gasped and explained, "I knew it! A leprechaun stole it!" Now, I have no idea where she picked up the leprechaun's idea, but it must have been some lingering St. Patrick's Day lore. So, to avoid admitting my guilt, we set up a trap for the leprechaun, using the top of the chocolate box decorated with hieroglyphics. And this was all made by my 4-year-old daughter, with her claiming that these hieroglyphics were irresistible to leprechauns. We also added tape to catch the thief in our sticky trap. So now I'm stuck in this ridiculous charade, hoping that she'll just forget about it. But considering that she didn't forget about the chocolate, I shouldn't get my hopes up. And now I'm thinking I might have to buy a little leprechaun figure just to keep this going. This story is super cute. This original poster's daughter has a wild imagination, and it sounds like this is going to be a really fun thing to look back on later in life. Because of course you ate the chocolate, no leprechauns came in and took it. And I think an easy out in this situation is to maybe make like an apology note from one of the leprechauns with a new piece of chocolate sitting on the note, basically saying, "Hey, sorry I took the chocolate." And maybe that might take your daughter off your trail. But either way, this is just a cute story, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to have some fun with this. My boyfriend is incredibly clingy and makes really awkward comments and gestures about me in public. And it's really, really weird, and I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title says, my boyfriend is super clingy, and I feel like it's making me insane. I also feel super guilty because he generally does treat me really well. He cooks for me, he tells me I'm I'm beautiful, etc. I used to love it at the start of our relationship, but it's just too much now. We also live and work together. When we're at home, he is constantly trying to spend quality time with me, if you know what I mean. And while it is nice that he obviously loves me a lot, it's become really irritating. I do tell him to stop eventually, and he just gets a bit upset, but doesn't say anything. He's also always touching me. Like, we will lie in bed, and his face will be up against mine. And this is like all the time. Or half of his body will be on me. And if I ask him for space, he just says that I'm mean. At work, he is often touching me, rubbing up against me, or whistling at me, telling me that I'm beautiful. And it sounds lovely, but honestly, it's just too much. And it's always also in front of coworkers, so it's really embarrassing. And when we're with friends, he's even worse, constantly kissing me or touching me. And I'll say that I'm uncomfortable when he does this in front of his friends, but he just laughs and carries on. He simply won't take me seriously. He often talks about us being married and having kids one day, and tells me that he loves me probably over 20 to 30 times a day. But the thing is, I don't actually think we have so much in common. We honestly never have deep or meaningful conversations. In fact, we never really talk about anything. It's just spending time or being close to each other, and him telling me that he loves me and that I'm beautiful. Whenever I talk about the future, not about marriage and kids, like actual things that I want to do and things that I want to see, he never asks me more questions about it. He just says something like, "That sounds good." And I don't know, maybe it's just me being petty, but I feel like he doesn't even know me in the slightest. I feel like he doesn't really love me, but he just wants to love and be loved. Like, it's not about me, I'm just who's here right now. I also know that he is still in contact with multiple ex-girlfriends, and to be completely honest, I don't even agree with it, but I've just stopped even caring at this point. He will just say he's just talking about me, which I know is complete BS on his end. There are also a couple of red flags about this guy. He has dated people a lot younger than him, and I've told him that this is wrong, and he literally just doesn't seem to understand. He also has completely opposing political views to me, and doesn't agree with non-binary and trans people, which really irritates me. He can also be pretty ableist. Like, I'll say I'm struggling with my mental health or socially, and he will say to me, just get up early or just get over it. This is all just a bit much, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, the way your boyfriend is acting is really weird. He's almost treating you like some kind of doll or plaything. Like, he's not treating you like a girlfriend. He's not getting to know you, he doesn't want to know about any of your interests, and he just keeps saying, "I love you," and also embarrassing you in front of your coworkers. Like, that is seriously weird and creepy and just straight up embarrassing. And there's no reason to do that at work. That is honestly so weird. For a bit of context, her boyfriend in this moment is literally 30 years old. Like, can you imagine being in the original poster shoes, showing up to work and trying to just, I don't know, make a living, and your boyfriend is catcalling you and whistling at you down the hallway in front of your boss, your coworkers, and your supervisors? I think I would go nuts if someone did that to me constantly every single day. And I think there's a difference between love and just being outright creepy. And I think your boyfriend falls in the creepy factor, whether you're in a relationship with him or not. He's not respecting your boundaries, and he's going way outside of your comfort zone, outside of your own home. And he is also not respecting your boundaries, as well as your consent in front of your friends. Like, this is just really cringy behavior, and it sounds incredibly suffocating. So hopefully you can see that this guy is definitely kind of sketchy, and I just don't know if he's a good fit. This is incredibly awkward behavior, and I personally think you can do a lot better than this guy. Today, I messed up by trying to help an old lady who I thought was falling down, but in reality, she was just bowing at church, and as a result of me trying to help her out, she smacked me in the face. Here's what happened. So to start things off, this weird thing happened back in like 2008. It was a while ago, but I was telling a friend at work the craziest thing that happened to me at church. So while I was at this specific denomination, which was the same church where I was to be equally yoked with my wife, I personally found so many things that people did just downright bizarre. People were taking their fingers and hands, putting them in little dishes of water. They were bowing weirdly at odd times. They were doing all sorts of things I've never seen before. It's not like my wife didn't prep me. She totally did. There was even special names for all these weird things everyone was doing. So anyways, I find myself sitting in an aisle seat next to my entire family. I didn't really pay attention to the people around me, but all of a sudden an older lady approaches our aisle, turns abruptly towards me, and starts falling. Now, my first thought was that she's either tripping or worse, having a heart attack or a stroke. I'm ex-military, and even though we're not trained to save the day or anything like that, if a civilian is in trouble, we take care of what needs to get taken care of. As she was falling, I yelled out, "I've got you," just so she wouldn't fall anymore. All of a sudden, this lady starts slapping me, hard and repeatedly. Now, my whole family is in disbelief at this moment. Even my laughing 8-year-old could not believe what was happening. The music in the church stopped playing, and everyone, my wife included, started yelling. Now, in my defense, I knew that people bowed when they came into church just to show God some respect. But this lady bowed so quickly and so abruptly, with a genuine look of pain on her face, that I in no way thought that she was genuflecting in some kind of way. The lady then changed her mind on what aisle she was going to go towards and walked away to another aisle, and then genuflected like everyone else. The rest of the service, I couldn't look at anyone without receiving a scowl. My wife literally held her head in shame, and each of my kids could not stop laughing, which really did not help. We seriously had to go to another parish. Till this day, my 8-year-old, who is now in his 20s, constantly grabs me and yells out, "I've got you." So overall, this was just entirely embarrassing. This story is really funny. I think from the outside looking in, someone who isn't of someone else's faith would find everything they see around them probably really weird. Whether it's bowing or putting water on their face or anything like that, yeah, it could be seen as really weird from the outside looking in, especially if you haven't grown up in that religion. And I think any religion is guilty of that off the bat. And worst of all, this guy was just trying to do what he thought was the right thing. He saw an old lady potentially falling down and completely eating it on the floor, and he was like, "Nope, not on my watch, I'm ex-military." And I gotta be honest, if I was there, I probably would have started laughing as well. I'm imagining some big burly guy getting the absolute garbage smacked out of him by some little old lady. So the next time he goes back to that church, hopefully he keeps his hands to himself, even if he thought he was trying to do the right thing. I let my coworker sleep on my couch without my girlfriend knowing, and when my girlfriend walked in, she was absolutely upset to find a woman on my couch that she doesn't know. And as a result, my girlfriend is thinking of breaking up with me, and right now I really don't know what to do. So for a bit of backstory, my girlfriend and I have been together for around 4 years. We have had a happy relationship with a few rough patches over the years. We are very intertwined with each other's families and have broken up once before. We plan to move in together in a few months, but my girlfriend has keys to my apartment and spends many days here. Now, she is a nurse and was working the night shift one night ago. I got off work, went back to my apartment, and helped her do some meal prep before she left. I had plans to go out to a brewery with some of my coworkers and friends, but didn't inform my girlfriend about them. I didn't really have an excuse for that, other than not wanting to be judged for going out and drinking so much. And the last time we went out together with them, we got in a fight. So I go out. I continue texting my girlfriend until around 1 in the morning, and my coworker usually stays with another coworker, but didn't want to be a burden on him, so she asked me instead. So I said yes, and we ended up getting pizza and going back to my place to eat and possibly smoke. I couldn't find my stuff, and we both ended up just passing out. Now, my girlfriend comes in at 7:30 in the morning, and she is absolutely livid, and rightfully so. There is a random girl on the couch who she has only met once. Now, I am passed out on the floor of my bedroom, and I have no idea why I'm on the floor. My girlfriend interrogates my friend, who I can only assume is very hungover in the moment, and my girlfriend believes that nothing sketchy happened between us, if you know what I mean. Then my friend leaves, and my girlfriend comes to my room. She asks why on earth I'm on the floor and who in the world is on our couch, and I explained to her that she couldn't drive home and needed a place to crash. Now, this may have been all fine if I had been smart enough to inform my girlfriend ahead of time that I was not only out and about, but also to ask and see how she felt about me letting a girl crash on my couch. And you know what? I was too stupid and I didn't do either of those things. And now, her main gripes are that she thinks I forgot about my girlfriend when I'm drinking, and that I don't care about her, that I don't respect her or our relationship, and that she cannot trust me anymore. She is very upset about all of this, and I have stated multiple times that nothing happened, nor do I want anything to happen with anyone besides my girlfriend. And now she is pretty much leaning towards breaking up. My girlfriend and I drink often and heavily too, so she knows how it is and has done plenty of stupid things while drunk as well. I feel like she is overreacting, but I don't really know. I obviously need to make this up to her, but we have had problems in the past, and it just seems like we continue to have major problems every few months, mainly revolving around one of us drinking just a little bit too much. What should I do? Yeah, I really think the original poster is the jerk in this situation. You really should not have let that woman sleep over at your house. It doesn't matter how inebriated you were, that should not have happened. I mean, just think about if the roles were reversed in this situation. Would you be happy if your girlfriend let some guy that you don't really know that well sleep over at your house? house, I know if that was me, I would be pretty upset. So I think to some degree, you can at least understand where she's coming from. She has every right to be upset with you. So in that regard, I don't think she's overreacting in the slightest. She literally walked in on something that looked really bad. And while yes, you didn't cheat on her, it did look incredibly sketchy. You didn't discuss a girl sleeping over at your place, and it just straight up looks bad. And while you did have positive intentions, there is, in my opinion, no reason for them to stay at your house. I mean, nowadays, there are so many ride-sharing options, someone easily could have gotten them home no problem. It's also worth mentioning that, yeah, you probably should stop drinking. Like, clearly you can't make right decisions when you're inebriated like that, and it's caused this situation altogether. Like, even throughout this entire story, you keep saying, oh, it's because I was drunk. Well, if it's because you were drunk, you should probably cut back on drinking. And it's also really sketchy that you would group your girlfriend in with your problem without providing any kind of context. Like, you say, oh, we both have a drinking problem, but then you only list all the reasons why you have the drinking problem. Like, I would really need a little bit more context just to even come to that similar conclusion. So honestly, some things really do need to change on your end, because otherwise, I honestly don't blame your girlfriend breaking up with you. An entitled Karen gets up in my face and starts screaming at me for taking a disabled parking spot, claiming that fat people like me don't need disabled parking spots, and that I was trying to work the system. And as a result of getting up in my face and bothering me and everybody else in the parking lot, this entitled Karen got banned from every Walmart in my state. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, I have a disability parking pass that I only use when I need it. At my local Walmart, there are Parallels disability parking spots. They are there for those that need to get equipment out or have ramps that need to extend. There are traditionally oriented disability spots too. There's also this dangerous habit of nearly everyone at Walmart to park perpendicular in the parallel spot. I don't use disability parking that often, but my husband walks with a cane and uses them a lot. But he parks correct though. Those that are parked in the correct manner will pull so forward that they block access to the painted sidewalk, which defeats the purpose of parallel parking spots, as even the side of the sidewalk is now blocked from using their ramps. I have made multiple complaints to 2 different store managers and called Walmart themselves, but nothing came of it. One of my coworkers is legally blind and is temporarily blind as she has an upcoming surgery. Her husband is her eyes and gives her rides to fill her prescriptions as needed. He is quarantining this week due to COVID, so I offer to help her get her medication. I drop her off at the door per her request and say I'll park and come in just in case, as I wanted to make sure she was solid. So I park the car in the parallel spot. It's all that's open, and my coworker generally cannot squeeze herself and her service dog into the tight spots of this parking lot. I park and spend a second looking for my permit, as it doesn't live on my rearview mirror because I only use it if I'm driving my husband or I know that I will need it. So it's been about 8 minutes before I leave my car. Right then at that moment, an SUV pulls up and starts to yell at me. I didn't know who it was, so I just keep walking. And the lady that gets out of her car is the entitled Karen of this story. She walks up, grabs my shoulder, which spins me around, looks at me and says, "Are you deaf? Move your car." I look at her and I say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I accidentally take your spot?" I thought maybe she was waiting for it and I took it without realizing it. She says to me, "No, this is a disability parking spot and I need to park there." Now, I don't judge anyone because disabilities are often invisible. To set the scene, she wasn't walking without any kind of aid. No cane, no crutches, no wheelchair, nothing. And she did run up on me. I say to her, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I need the space." And that's when this lady said something to me that honestly blew my mind. She looks at me and says, "Well, nothing looks wrong with you, and being fat isn't a disability. You need to move your stupid car." Now, when she said this, I was honestly blown away. As a side note, being overweight is a disability in my state if it's secondary. I'm fat because I'm disabled. I'm not disabled because I'm fat. This entitled Karen is screaming at me so loudly. She says, "Look, everyone else can park, right?" And she screamed this at me while pointing at the cars parked perpendicular in the parallel spots, even though only one person is supposed to park there. So I chime in and say, actually, they're parked wrong, and they are blocking disability access to those who need it. Now, I know I shouldn't have engaged, but I did. Sometimes I have an issue of just keeping my mouth shut. I just shrug and I start walking away because my coworker is probably waiting on me inside, as it's been a minute, and I didn't want her to think that I had left her to fend for herself. The greeter and the cart guy are heading out at this point, and the entitled Karen, with her car in the middle of the road blocking as many people as possible, sees these people walking up and screams out, "This fatty is using a spot for handicapped people and needs to move her stupid car so I can have it. If she doesn't, I'm going to call the cops and have it towed. Now, I know this is an empty threat, as a private citizen can't have a car towed from private property without the owner or manager's permission. This is not my first fiesta when dealing with this kind of stuff, so I just keep walking in, as I know she doesn't have anything on me, and I see my friend heading out with a dog that clearly has a vest on that says Blind Assist Service Dog. The entitled Karen tries to grab at me one more time to spin me around, but I deflect and end up getting her nose with my elbow. It was an honest reflex from years of self-defense classes, but I digress. I don't notice at the time that I made contact, as I'm singularly focused on my coworker and getting her somewhere safe. I insist that she take my arm as I lead her to the car and get her settled. During the brief walk, I give her the 90-second rundown and tell her I'll give her the full story on the ride back to her place. By this point, a manager has come out and asked me what happened, indicating that the entitled Karen is supposedly bleeding. Now, I didn't break her nose, but I did unfortunately make it bleed. It was an accident after all. And you know what? It sucks to be her. I did it in self-defense, and there were at least 2 other store employees as my witnesses. I tell the story to management, and I let them know that I was helping my blind friend get her medication from the pharmacy. He saw her on the way out, and I confirmed that they were the same person. So I turned to the entitled Karen, who is now going off on the cart guy, and I say to them, I got this spot for my blind friend. She's the reason I have this space. Is she disabled enough for you? I can see the color draining from the screamer's face, and she stutters out something like, prove it. Where is she? Have her prove that she's blind. Thankfully, the cart guy is between her and my car, so she can't make it to where I'm parked. The manager says to just go. Get out of here right now. I had given the manager my number to follow up and said that I'd be glad to come back as I'm here all the time, but I needed to get my friend home. A few days later, I get a call from the manager stating that he only wanted me to give the story just in case something happens, or she tries to file some fake claim against me. After reviewing the camera, they can prove that this entitled Karen came into the lot long after I had parked. She had already been warned about bullying others out of their space at least twice before as well. She insisted that cops were called, so they did just that. The cops ran her permit and discovered it belongs to her mother, who passed away 2 years ago. They took the permit and warned her that it would be a $400 fine for using someone else's permit improperly. They didn't ticket her, as she wasn't in a disabled spot when they got there. They did threaten to have her cited with a double parking, as there were still people trying to get out and she was blocking them into their spaces. This didn't surprise me, as most people don't use the word handicap in my area when they are legitimately disabled. It's become somewhat of a slur now to insult the disabled, so we run far from it. The manager also stated that as this is not the first nor the second time that this has happened, she has been trespassed and won't be allowed at any Walmart store in the state. I mentioned that there are 4 Walmarts in the county alone, and he said that her pictures get sent to all of them, so she can't enter or park in any of them in the state. She can make the over 2-hour drive to the next closest Walmart out of state, or she would have to shop somewhere else. The closest Target to me doesn't sell food, and they're about an hour's drive away too. He told me this just in case I had any issues, as he was concerned about any kind of retaliation. He says to me, if I see her in the lot and I don't feel safe, call the store and have someone escort you to and from your car. They can also call the cops to have her trespassed at that point. He wasn't concerned it would actually, but he wanted me to have all the information so that I could act upon it as I wished. So the moral of the story is that if you come to me in a nice way, I will bend over backwards to help you out. But if you come at me in the way that this entitled Karen did, then you can guarantee that I absolutely will not help you. That is honestly insane to me that someone would really ask, hey, prove to me that you're blind. Like, what is wrong with people? If someone's parking in a disabled parking spot, I'm going to assume that they actually need it, one way or another. Like the original poster has it right. Some disabilities are completely invisible, like you just don't know if someone has something or not. And it's not totally obvious, like having a wheelchair or a cane. So the fact that this entitled Karen literally stopped traffic just to basically assault this woman is insane to me. Like, she seriously was so far out of line. So hopefully her being banned from every Walmart in her state will teach her the lesson that you just can't treat people this way, whether she actually needed the parking spot or not. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My girlfriend of 8 years said that she has feelings for my friend, and as a result, she ended up cheating on me, forcing us to break up, and I now feel completely broken and I don't know what to do. So my now ex-girlfriend had been together with me since 7th grade. We were very young at the time, time and dated for about a year and a half. In 10th grade, which was back in 2017, I had realized I still possibly had some feelings for her, and we decided to get back together. We went through many life changes together, such as graduating, moving out of our parents, spending quality time together, and all other things that occur as we grew up, and it was amazing. In 2021, I started a new job and I met a coworker who turned into one of our best friends. He was raised in Saudi Arabia, so he had some very strong viewpoints on certain things such as cheating and had strong morals. He helped my girlfriend get a job at his work when her and I moved into our first apartment together. Around this time, we also had 3 cats who we love very much. They did not have a demanding job, so they usually ended up talking and hanging out all day, and I would usually talk to her throughout the day too, because we were always communicating and loved to talk. This was never really an issue, but slowly over the course of the last 6 months, they grew to be very close friends as well. Since their work was very close to our house, he usually ended up coming over after his shifts and we would all hang out together. Starting around February, my girlfriend began to say that she was having these feelings and she couldn't explain it because nobody would understand. Eventually, this turned into her drinking heavily just to deal with it. Over the last couple of months, I could tell that it was all taking a toll on her, and she eventually opened up to me about her having feelings about our friend. She said he was in her head all the time, and she was so confused about everything. She also said she feels like our spark was not like it was at the beginning of the relationship, but she still wanted us to be close. Our friend was an adventurous person by nature and always wanted to go out to places and do stuff. Unfortunately, at the time, I was not being the partner I should be, and I never really helped her out around the house with cleaning or chores or anything in general. She always got so frustrated about it. I could tell that our friend was over almost all the time, but I enjoyed being with him. We were honestly like brothers. Sometimes I would go to sleep and my girlfriend would hang out with him for a couple of hours afterwards, and even a couple of times stayed up all night talking to him. But she was always truthful to me and said nothing physical ever happened, and he said the same thing. He told me I was like a brother to him, and he views us like family. Throughout all of this, I could see she was talking to him more and more, and he was always in her head. We had talks about how we needed to focus on our relationship between us two, and go out and do things to make us stronger. I started becoming a better person and was doing my own household duties to help bring us closer. She even quit drinking completely and tried to help the situation. Even on her 21st birthday a couple of weeks ago, she did not drink. Unfortunately, I could see that he was still in her head. She communicated this to him too, and he said he was going to step back and let us work it out, while also saying that he felt horrible that this is where it led to. This was short-lived, as he just usually ended up coming over anyways, because we both wanted to see him. Looking back now, I should have put my foot down and not let him come around anymore. About a week ago, she told me that she is confused about everything and she loves me, but recently she has not been feeling as strongly towards our relationship, and she hated herself for the way that she was always thinking about him. Eventually, she brought up breaking up and said that she wants to stop hurting me and that she is so confused. That night, we went out for a walk and we went out to eat and have a movie. The next day, she brought it up again over text messaging and said that she thinks we needed to be done. I texted our friend and he was very upset and said that we were too good for each other. I asked him if he felt the same way about her, and he said he loves her as a person and a friend, but could never do that. She went up to the city where he lives, where we used to live, which is about 30 minutes away, to clear her mind. She even bought alcohol and said she felt that she needed to clear her mind and went for a walk alone. She then went to a place where our friend was having a barbecue with his friends, and she started talking to him about everything. He was talking to me at the same time of saying that he was trying to get her to come back and talk to me, but she refused to go. She said that she needed to stay up there and think about things, and said that she was going to sleep in her car instead of coming back down. Now, honestly, because I'm a caring boyfriend, I didn't want this, because the city is not necessarily safe. So when my friend told me that she could stay at his place and that he would sleep in a different room, I was frustrated, but I did end up allowing it, simply for the fact that my friend said he doesn't have any feelings towards her. The next day, I tried to get her to come back and talk about what she wanted to do, but she said she couldn't, and she stayed another night. Now, at this point, I was distraught, because I knew our relationship was potentially coming to an end. The next day, she finally came back down. I met her at the Target parking lot, where she was hysterical, and admitted that my friend did not sleep on the couch, and they ended up kissing and spending some quality time together. Now, when I found this out, I was was incredibly hurt. She said that she's so confused and she just messed up, and she was worried that I would never want to be with her anymore. But even with all things considered, she still said that she loves me. But she did understand that things had to be over. We have now been separate for a couple of days and have been texting about our plans for animals and living situations. She's also been saying how sorry she is and how she's been having a hard time grieving what happened. We still care for each other and want everything to end as smoothly as possible. As for me, I'm completely broken, and I told our friend I will never be speaking to him ever again. He didn't have much to say, and I could tell that he felt bad. He then admitted that it happened 2 times, once each night. This made it entirely worse. I have been feeling horrible and detached and heartbroken that she will not be in my life anymore. I know that she has stayed at his house for a couple of days since she told me everything, which also makes me feel bad as well. I love her so much still, and I would do anything to be with her again, but I know that we cannot be back together. I feel as if I will never love again, and I lost my best friend in my life. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. First and foremost, I think you need to understand that you did not do anything wrong. Your girlfriend cheated on you, and she was basically leading up to this moment for a very long time. And not only that, your best friend is an absolute jerk. He lied to your face. He said, "Oh, I don't have any feelings for her. By the way, could she spend the night?" Like, what in the world is going on? Your ex-girlfriend will never be anything more than just a cheater. She clearly did not value your relationship in the slightest, and hopefully that fact in and of itself will help you move on in some kind of way. And I think it's also ironic that your friend has such high values about cheating and all this other stuff, because clearly that was a lie. So hopefully when you get your living arrangements taken care of, as well as the animal situation set up, you can move on and never deal with these people ever again. Because honestly, they are not good people, and they would only cause you harm in the future. My husband has been cheating on me since November, claiming that we're in an open relationship as well as an open marriage, and that I should be okay with him talking to other women. And after I tried to reinforce boundaries that we had agreed upon, he starts to guilt trip me and say that he's gonna move to Alaska. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my husband and I have been married for about a year. We've been together for 6 years in total, and he moved states about a year into our relationship to be with me in my hometown. Before Christmas time, I noticed a missing sum of money from our joint account, and so I asked him about it. He said that he had bought something from a friend, and I just let it go. On Christmas, we went to his family's house, and he insisted he wanted to go out for guys' night and leave me there. When he got back that night, he was very serious and talked to me about how he almost did something that would have disappointed everyone and rescinded his personal growth, but framed it as a potential substance use. I asked him for marriage counseling because I felt insane for thinking this amazing man could be carrying on behind my back. On our way home, I found the text message between him and another woman, but thought it was purely emotional and that they had not met in person. He agreed to end things and move forward to repair our relationship. I found out he'd still been in contact with her on my birthday about 3 months later, and again, he said that he'd end things. After this, I blocked her on his phone, and when she reached out again, he sat me down and we discussed it. I was so proud of him for being open with me. I was disappointed in myself for even having blocked her behind his back, but he said he would keep her blocked, and what's done is done. It turns out that he told her I'd blocked her because I was jealous, but since we were allegedly in an open marriage, it shouldn't have mattered. When I found out on my birthday, I told him that if it happened again, that was it. He needed to leave. I pay the bulk of our bills due to income differences, and our home is in my name, which I now see may have been emasculating for him. Things had seemed great in our relationship ever since. It felt like we were both making progress in the right direction and actively exerting effort for the good of our relationship. My husband has been no contact with his family for nearly the entirety of our relationship, and over the past weekend, we went to visit his entire extended family again. He said it made him so happy and proud to bring me around everyone and for them to see us love each other. I found out yesterday when I finally reached out to this other woman that he'd not only been continuously in contact with her, but things were much more serious than I ever could have anticipated. He reached out through mutual connections to get in contact with this woman specifically. He told her that we have an open marriage, and I found out that the guy's night that he had at Christmas was actually a private date with her. We saw each other, I waved them goodbye, and they didn't spend any quality time together, if you know what I mean. But that doesn't change what happened. My husband and I sat down yesterday and talked it out after I tried to stand by my boundary of separating. I just couldn't do it. For reference, reference, we live in the southeastern United States, and when I mentioned the boundary, he literally started to book a flight to Alaska. I love this man. I've built a home for him. We've both had turbulent childhoods, and while it's not an excuse, I just couldn't bring myself to leave him without a home. So honestly, where do we go from here? When we talked, he said my separation boundary made him feel like I'd already abandoned him, but I never thought it would actually reach this point. Not only that, but I couldn't even follow through. I can't give up, and he seems to think that I already did. Is it possible to repair our relationship? What should I do? It sounds like your husband's trying to play games. He gets confronted about him cheating on you, and his first reaction is, okay, I'm gonna get a flight to Alaska. Like, what are you talking about? Who does that? This guy is seriously just trying to guilt trip you and make it seem like this is your fault for being upset that he's cheating. Like, what on earth is happening? He literally left you at Christmas to go on a date with another woman. Like, this is all just a big dumpster fire that he started. He even tried to pawn off your marriage as something that it's not, calling it an open marriage as if you would be okay with the messing around that he's doing, which obviously you're not. He's playing stupid games, and in my opinion, he's about to find out the stupid prize, with that being the possible end of his marriage. So in my opinion, this is not something I would ignore. The way he's acting is super sketchy, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. An entitled Karen tries to steal my bird off of my hand in public, claiming that I don't deserve to have a bird like this, and that she should have my bird instead. And I've never been more angry or flabbergasted by an interaction in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I decided today is the perfect day to pop the harness on my bird. They're a sulfur-crested cockatoo, and I wanted to take her out to PetSmart. So I got her in her carrier, put the carrier into the car, and on the road we went. She did remarkably well, and didn't even get car sick. But you know what tiny detail I forgot? People talk to you if you bring a bird to a store, whether you want them to or not. Now, I'm very good at dealing with people. Years of retail work, restaurant work, stuff like that. All of this has trained me in the art of small talk. The PetSmart workers were fantastic, actually. They asked the basic general questions. No one asked to touch her. Everyone kept a respectful distance and didn't overwhelm her or me. But the other customers of the store, not so much. There was one woman in particular who really caused me problems, and that's the entitled Karen of the story. She told me about all the birds she had at her house. She stopped me to chat, asked me about my bird, and I gave the condensed version of the story. My bird is 15, she's nearly 16 years old. She came from an older couple who wanted a younger home for her. She's doing great and she's the love of my life, as well as all the other things I could possibly say about my bird. So this entitled Karen then asked me, so she's almost 16 years old? How long have you had her? I explained that I've had her for about 4.5 months now. Have you ever had a cockatoo before? I then explained that no, she's my first large bird, and I feel very lucky to have her in my life. This entitled Karen then says something to me that absolutely blows my mind. She says, you shouldn't have her. You don't have the experience with large birds, and you're too young to have one. You don't even look like you have your own life together. And then after she said that, she started to reach for my bird. She was actually going to take my bird away, and I could not believe what was happening in front of me. Now, I would have loved to pretend like I had some kind of witty comeback. I thought of all the good responses in the last couple of hours since we've been back home, and I've had a minute to process exactly what happened. In reality though, I came back with the unbearably witty retort of saying, what? Because you know, I am a brilliant person under pressure. I stepped back, put my cart between us and said, nope, we're not doing this. And I turned around and I walked out. Hours later, I have gone back in my head and told her off 10 ways to Sunday. In the moment, I was so flabbergasted. Someone actually tried to take my bird away from me. Like she literally tried to grab my bird off of my hand. After that happened, I don't think we're going to have another field trip anytime soon. I think we'll just stick to the yard. This was a stupid experience, and I would have enjoyed it more if I had enough brain power to yell at her and embarrass her for even thinking of trying something like that. She deserved to be horrifically embarrassed. I'm so mad about the whole thing. I'm still shaken up about it, and I'm now going to dwell on it for probably the next lifetime. This story made me unbelievably angry. Did this entitled Karen really think that the original poster would somehow give over this bird to this lady and say, oh yes, of course, random stranger, you can have this bird that I love and care for? Like if I brought my pet to the pet store and someone approached me like that trying to take my animal, I think I would have lost my mind. Like there's no way that's happening. And I think in the moment, I don't blame the original poster for not having a witty comeback. You did the absolute right thing. You put the cart between between you and this crazy Karen, and you said to her, no, we are not doing this. And that's all you really needed to do. It also makes me question how this lady got her other birds. Has she tried this before? I mean, clearly she feels comfortable enough trying to take other people's birds that she probably thought this was going to be the fourth one that she was going to grab. I think if anything, the best thing to do after this is maybe call up the store and give a description of this woman and explain exactly what she tried to do in the store. They might even have CCTV footage that would expose exactly what she did, because that's unacceptable. Like, that is seriously sketchy behavior, and it's so crazy that someone would do that. So good for you for protecting your bird from this crazy Karen, because I can't imagine what would have happened if she actually got her hands on your bird and tried to run away. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled Karen comes out of nowhere, tries to bully me during the middle of me directing a show, and starts demanding I do certain things for my technician job. And I've honestly never been more annoyed in my life by someone's stupid behavior. Here's what happened. So I work at a lot of very high-end corporate events as a freelance technician. As my job dictates, I coordinate with the showrunner to get our run of a show together so we can all be on the same page. Now for this show, the showrunner was very frazzled, but also very nice, which is pretty common. On show day, there's a lot of stress on them, so a big part of my job is to help calm their nerves and let them know that we've got this. So the show starts and I'm directing it, operating the video switch between inputs from a PowerPoint laptop, a Zoom conference laptop, and 2 cameras. As you can imagine, it's a lot of stuff to stay on top of. As the show's going along, suddenly a woman comes over to the tech table and starts talking to me during the show, which is a big no-no. She then starts making demands on my switching method. She looks at me and says, I want to see the people on the Zoom call only. And when I said this, I politely acknowledge her request, and she goes back to her seat. The thing is, the client paid us to set up a robotic cam to face the audience specifically so they could be seen by the remote presenters on Zoom. And the showrunner themselves had specifically asked me to switch to the audience during the question and answer part of the sessions. So I had been switching to audience members asking questions to the Zoom presenters, which apparently this woman did not like. So the next session we have a Zoom panel call going, and the host picks up the mic to interact with the call. So my instinct was to switch to them since he was on stage, and I assumed that her request was about audience members asking questions. Well, it wasn't. She once again comes running over to my desk and says to me, why is he on the screen? I told you I wanted them on the screen. Who's your boss? I told you this already. Now, when this entitled Karen was screaming at me, I'm honestly just not sure who this was. And at this point, I'm close to telling her that I am my own boss, and she can run the show the rest of the way if she wants to. But thankfully for her, it was close to lunch break. To their credit though, both of the on-site AV managers and the showrunner apologized to me. They also told me that this entitled Karen was generally a giant pain in the neck who suddenly decided that she wanted to direct the show that she had not helped organize, but just wanted to throw her weight around. Thankfully, the rest of the show went great, and I was left alone by this entitled Karen. And to top it all off, we all had a good laugh about her as we wrapped up the show. It is really good that your colleagues had your back. I personally can't stand it when people like this, who have no authority or who have no idea of what they're talking about, try to throw their weight around as if they have any clue of what's going on. Like, why on earth would she run up to this desk when these people are trying to do their job? Like, they already have enough to deal with, and they already have enough problems on their plate that they're trying to make sure doesn't become bigger problems. Like, there's literally nothing worse than somebody who doesn't know what they're doing trying to bark orders at you as if they do know what they're doing. And you can bet if this person followed exactly what this entitled Karen was trying to get them to do, it probably would have fallen apart, and she would have been the last person to stand up and try and fix the problem. So good for you for standing up for yourself and standing your ground. She didn't know what she was talking about, and that show seriously would have suffered if you listened to anything that she wanted to say. My family doesn't approve of my boyfriend no matter what I do, and at this point, I'm seriously at a loss of how to move forward. So I've been dating my boyfriend for 5 months now. Everything has been great. He treats me like a queen, makes me feel safe and loved, communicates nicely, takes me on trips, and then some. I've met his parents and they are both great. We talk about everything, and they do not want to interfere with our relationship. They just support us. My boyfriend has had a very hard life growing up. He was working when he was 5 years old and still works a lot. He is financially stable and has his own farm, as well as his own house and cars. He is well educated and knows many things. My family, on the other hand, is a complete opposite. My mom has always been a victim them, who did everything to support me and my brother, even though that's not entirely true. Because in reality, she was always just helping my brother. My father doesn't care about anything. He has a job, but gives some money to my brother, who lives separately with his fiance, and keeps the rest for himself. I was always the one who paid all the bills, bought the food and clothes for everyone, and needed to provide for everything. When I was growing up, I was more hungry than full. Nobody cared. Now, my current boyfriend came over to bring me some sawdust, as I have some chickens, and my parents wanted to meet him. He was very positive and very respectful, never said anything bad to them, and he was a bit dirty since he was working all day long. But to them, that's the end of the world. He came over when we had a religious celebration last weekend and dressed nicely and was very clean. But my mom made jokes about how he needs to cook for her and bring her food. Now, last Friday, he came over again, bringing me the sawdust and wearing his work clothes. My mother and grandmother actually attacked me the next morning for that, but I just told them that I don't care. My mom asked him to take me, her, and my brother's fiance to see her parents, who live in the countryside and have a farm as well. He accepted, of course, and she was extremely disrespectful and rude towards him, and I told her to shut it and mind her own business. When my grandpa and grandma saw my boyfriend, they made jokes about how I'm so much better looking than him, that we won't be equals when we get married, as well as many other hurtful things. This morning, my grandma, who lives with us, started hysterically crying, calling him names and telling me I should be ashamed of myself for dating him, since he doesn't know how to dress. My father said he was going to disown me if I continue this relationship, and my mother was yelling at him, calling him the worst possible names, all because he doesn't dress how she likes and doesn't talk the way that we do. I'm now at such a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Your family is just straight up toxic. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. They are just mean, nasty people, and they're just gonna be really overdramatic, pretty much regardless of who you bring over. And I think that's something that you just need to understand first and foremost. They really will not like anyone you bring over, and they probably don't want him to step into the picture, because if you leave the family, that means the rest of them are gonna have to step up and actually work for once. Because you said it yourself, you've been working incredibly hard ever since you were a kid, and you've always been forced to provide for your family. Clothes, food, everything, it sounds like. And that's not fair for you in the slightest. Your parents have failed in that regard. So if I was in your shoes, and I had a partner that was as good as this guy that you're describing, then for starters, I would stop bringing him over to your house, and also think of ways that I could move out. There's no way I'm gonna live in that environment. For context, the original poster is 22 years old, and their boyfriend is 26. And while the prospect of moving out is probably a little scary, based on how much you work and how determined you are to get things done and have some semblance of independence, I seriously don't think you're gonna have any problem finding something that can help you get out of there. Because it sounds like your parents are taking advantage of you, and they probably just see you as free labor at the end of the day. So hopefully this all works out for you, because regardless of what your toxic family says, you have a good relationship, and I really would not let them try to dissuade you from pursuing something that makes you happy. My girlfriend brought a guy home from a bar alone, and later told me that he tried to make a move on her after she made him some food and had some drinks talking on her couch. And now that I've learned about all this information, I am so angry, and I seriously don't know what to do. So this story involves me and my girlfriend. We have been together for 2 years, and things have been very good and intimate until now. My girlfriend has talked a couple of times to this guy at the local bar. They have had very drunk, deep talks about feelings, and he seems like a sad guy. My girlfriend loves these kinds of talks, and I don't talk much about my feelings. She told me he is so understanding and likes talking about feelings. I have been introduced to this guy by my girlfriend, and I have seen the way that he looks at her, because this guy is looking at my girlfriend with lust. So I told her that this guy obviously wants something a little bit more than to talk about feelings, but she dismissed me and said that she really didn't think so. He apparently knows that she has a boyfriend, and that is more than enough reassurance for her to know that this guy's not going to do anything. Fast forward to 1 week later, and I'm at work. She is out with friends at that bar. My girlfriend invites everyone over to her place to continue the party, but everyone dismisses it except for this one guy again. She says that she didn't want to leave him hanging, so the two of them went back to her place. She makes him food, gets him something to drink, and they continue talking. After a while, he starts hitting on her and stroking on her back and on her legs. She tells him that she is not interested, but he doesn't seem to care. And still, even after that approach, she still lets him sleep on the couch. She told me it got very uncomfortable very quickly, and that she didn't want to throw him out or make a big deal about it. The next morning, he leaves early without saying anything, and she meets up with me to tell me. I am am mad because she invited the guy I specifically told her wants a little bit more than to talk about feelings. And she did this in the middle of the night alone at her place. I'm also mad that someone acted creepy and inappropriate towards my girlfriend. And I've got to be honest, it's incredibly hard to balance. But she doesn't understand why I'm mad, asking me things like if I'm jealous or stuff like that. And then I get angry and can't even think straight. So I don't know if it's a big deal or not. I don't want to talk to my friends or family about it before I get some insight from strangers online. What should I do? Your girlfriend is entirely and completely in the wrong. She invited a guy over to her place, made him food, and then had some drinks. And by the way, this is the same guy you warned her about. Like, she literally knew what she was getting into, and she played the nice route and let him into her life. She either has questionable judgment or she's a complete idiot. Like, if my partner went and hung out with someone who I've said I think they have a crush on you, and they did that alone, drunk in their apartment, I would personally be having a very serious talk about our relationship. That is just incredibly inappropriate. And I'm also a big believer that when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. And right now, your girlfriend is showing you that she just does not care about your relationship, and she would rather play nice with some guy who clearly wants something a little bit more than food, drinks, and to talk about his feelings. I mean, this is also a good example of how being rude and just saying no, you can't come into my house could have saved this lady a lot of trouble. So I personally would take this seriously and not let this slide, because in my eyes, this is a deal breaker and some serious changes need to be made. Otherwise, this is just not going to end well. My younger brother is dating a toxic girlfriend, and after telling him so many times that she is being awful to him, he simply won't get the picture. And at this point, I don't know what to do. So my younger brother and I are quite close. We have two older brothers who don't really speak to us or have anything to do with us, but they talk to each other all the time. So we naturally became close with each other growing up. So he started dating a girl that he met on Hinge almost a year ago. At first, she seemed, from what he told us, as a normal and okay person. She lives an hour away from us, so it is a long distance relationship. He drives to see her every 2 weeks, and the first 2 months he didn't want to tell us about her in case it didn't work out, which was fair. So then, after they were together for a few months, we started hearing more and more about her slowly, and she seemed decent from the little that he has told us. We still don't really know what she looks like, as he never showed any kind of pictures of her. Only a glimpse of a small one on his phone lock screen, and she has never come over, and we still never met her. But as time went on, we noticed he talks to her a little too much. Their text messages are a mile long and are constant throughout the day, every day. We can't have a conversation with him because he is on his phone just texting, even if you're actively talking to him. She also wants to call and talk on the phone for at least 2 hours every night. If he does not do this or has no time or something like that, then she will get mad and start an argument, basically saying he doesn't care about her and cares about his family and friends and school way more than her. Even on my birthday a couple of months ago, she still demanded that he should talk to her and text her, and interrupted my birthday all day, as well as during the dinner outing at a restaurant. She starts a fight with him over something very trivial and juvenile almost every day, and if not then, every week. A few months back, she went through his followers on Instagram and made him unfollow a girl she doesn't know at all for seemingly no other reason besides the fact that this girl is super pretty. This woman is a mutual acquaintance of my brother and I that we worked with, and who is in a committed relationship for a few years now with her own boyfriend, who my brother doesn't even talk to at all, but still had her as a follower because of how nice she was. But this girl he's dating still made him unfollow her. A few weeks ago, I was at the store and trying to call our mom, who wasn't answering the phone. I called my brother asking what she's doing and have her text me back. Well, unbeknownst to me, my brother was on the phone with his girlfriend at the time. He asked her to hang on while he answered me real quick and call her right back, but she did not like that and was angry that he took my call and apparently hung up on her. Now, the best part is something that recently happened that I'm surprised wasn't the final straw with my brother. As I said before, we're quite close, so we have some pictures together, mostly silly Snapchat filter ones. Apparently, one popped up on his phone memories one day of us that she saw when he was with her. It was us sitting on his bed in his room, with both of us with our heads together, smiling with a mud mask filter. She got super upset. She said that she thinks it's just weird how close we are, saying that it's super weird that I was in his room and on his bed, basically insinuating it's weird because she thinks something scandalous was going on. Yeah, with my brother, are you kidding? She was seriously making a big deal out of an innocent sibling picture. Now, once again, I've never met this girl yet. She's never met me, me, we have never spoken to each other in any way, and she has already said months back that she is accusing my brother of caring about me, specifically his sister, more than her. Apparently, I can't even have a close relationship with my brother or even talk to him. I asked my brother if he thought it would be an issue with her if I was a guy instead. Do you think she would make it an issue if I was ugly? I personally don't think so. From things she has done so far, I think that she is quite insecure and incredibly immature. Even though I'm his sister, for God's sakes, she's worried about me stealing him away from her, as well as trying to make him weirded out, thinking our close relationship is something that it definitely would never be. My brother, of course, did not like what she was saying about me, but is still with her because they have good moments sometimes. It is sort of hurtful for me because he is apparently okay with her talking garbage about his own family. She also said, after my brother asked her why she's still friends with a problematic girl, that he can't tell her who to be friends with. But for one, he didn't say that, and two, she can still tell him who to follow and who not to follow. He said he simply didn't like her friend because of the bad things that she told him about her, and simply said that he didn't like her. But since she was mad about my brother not liking her friend, who she has constantly talked garbage about, she then had to immaturely retaliate by attacking one of his friends, whom she doesn't know in the slightest. So now she is not only causing issues with his family, but now one of his best friends. When he goes to see her, it's purely a physical relationship, if you know what I mean. And I just pray that he doesn't get her pregnant. My parents and I are just hoping that they break up soon. I've told him I'm not sure why he just doesn't break up with her, as he is super stressed out all of the time because of her. He claims he's not just with her for quality time, if you know what I mean. He will just not end things with her, and I'm not sure what to do. We've all tried giving him advice, and I hate seeing him in a toxic and awful situation as well as a relationship. One of our older brothers is married and is on the verge of divorce with a woman who is almost just like this girl. So it seems like he would somehow learn from that, but this just doesn't seem like the case. I truthfully don't even want to meet her at this point, as she's already trying to start something with me by forcing my brother to pick her over me and everyone else in his life. She apparently is not close with her family and her own brother, so she doesn't get it or understand where he's coming from when he just says that he loves his family. But that also doesn't mean that just because she's not close with any of them, that I can't be close with my own brother. I'm not sure what to tell him anymore. He seems to not know that none of this is normal in a relationship. Anytime we get on the topic of her, he says he doesn't want to talk about it, and he's stressed out enough. I'm taking him out for a belated 21st birthday drink soon, and I know he'll be texting her the entire time, and she will get mad because he's spending time with me. What should I do? This is really an unfortunate situation. Your brother is in a toxic relationship, and this lady is seriously trying to drive him away from his family and friends. Like, this is some narcissistic behavior in my opinion. She is trying to isolate him and basically control every aspect of his life. And I'm on your side. I wouldn't want to meet this lady at all either. She sounds awful, she sounds controlling, and she seriously is just dragging him into a horrible place. And I, for one, would not want that in my life. Nor would I want this in my siblings' life. This seriously sounds awful. So I think having one last good conversation with him and laying out everything that she is actively doing to him might somehow have some kind of effect in helping him see the truth. She is toxic and she is only going to cause him harm. And while you can't control your brother's behavior, hopefully you're able to get through to him. Because obviously you love your brother and you don't want to see him get dragged down by this toxic girlfriend. An entitled Karen repeatedly bothers me and tries to force me to take pictures of her kid after I was hired to photograph another family. And after having a back and forth over and over again, I eventually lost it on this Karen and put her right in her place. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying I'm a photographer. I pretty much work in all areas of photography in my area, meaning I cover weddings, babies, children, family photos, couple photos, christenings, you name it, and I probably have done it. In my area, I'm the only photographer who gets hired to shoot christening and baptism ceremonies, so I am pretty popular. Anyways, one summer, I'm turning up to my job at a local church, and I was hired by a lovely family. I'm working away, getting all my shots, when halfway through the service, a woman dressed in the brightest red outfit swanned right in, making noise with her family as they try and find their group to sit with them. One thing to mention is that in the UK, churches like to squeeze in as many christenings in one day, meaning they do a mass service and invite 4 to 6 families in one go and just call up each respective family to the water to baptize when the time was ready. So the vicar at this particular church calls all family to the water at the same time. So you can imagine imagine how full and hectic that can be. So I'm trying to squeeze through the crowd, just watching by the basin, asking if I could please stand in front of them, as I had been hired to photograph one of the family's child's baptism. People were lovely and absolutely moved out of the way, a lot more than I needed, just so they could accommodate me and I could do my job. Now, do you remember the woman I mentioned in red who waltzed in halfway through the service as she was late? Well, as I'm stood amongst the people at the basin, watching the respective family member being christened, I felt a hit on my arm, quite literally a really hard backhand on my arm, and it was the same arm that I had an expensive camera in. I just about stopped my camera from flying out of my hand, put it down from my face to see this weird entitled Karen staring at me. She looks at me and barks, "Make sure to photograph that kid." She then points to whoever she came for today, not the family I was hired by. She didn't say please, she didn't ask me who I was working for, she just ordered me to photograph her kid. I smiled and quietly whispered back that I was hired by another family, but when I said that, she didn't like that and just scowled at me. She said to me, "You work for the church. Photograph that child that I'm pointing to. You've not photographed him a single time." Again, I was trying to whisper as quietly as possible as I said to her, "Ma'am, I don't work for the church. I'm a professional photographer hired by that family over there." I point to the family, and the entitled Karen in red looks irritated and can't believe I've just denied her photos, despite her paying nothing for said photos. She says to me, "Of course you work for the church. Now take photos of them now." At this point, I'm getting more and more irritated, as she is actively stopping me from working, so I try to just ignore her. And right about then, I get another whack on my arm. This time, she pushed the wrong button for me. I said to her, "Excuse me, don't hit me again. And please stop distracting me from doing my job that I've been hired to do." This entitled Karen then got up in my face and said, "What did you just say to me? That's it. I'm reporting you to the church and you're gonna lose your job." Now, I'm in just utter disbelief at this point, because not only is she talking loudly over the priest and swearing, but she is not understanding me when I say I do not work for the church. I am an independent professional, hired by another family that I literally just pointed out. Now, instead of losing it, I just smile real big at her and I say to her, "No problem. I'd rather you wait to report me till after the service is done than keep punching and pulling on my arm, desperate for attention. So if you don't mind, I'll be doing the work I've been hired to do by that family over there." And I once again point out to the family. I gather that my client at this point has been watching this entitled Karen bother me the entire time and is really smiling and laughing back that I'm shutting her down and she isn't getting anything from me. This entitled Karen tries one more time after she realizes that maybe this girl isn't fazed by my stupid veiled threats and maybe she really is an independent photographer. She pulls at my arm again and I slowly turn to meet her with gritted teeth and I say yes. The entitled Karen then says, "If I pay you 20 quid, will you take some photos of my family?" I think to myself, 20 quid? This entitled Karen thinks a professional photographer for a christening day costs only 20 quid for me to bust my butt and just have some kind of special service? I simply look at her for a final time and I say to her, "Ma'am, if you think I charge 20 quid for a special milestone, a once in a lifetime event that you can only do once, like a wedding, well, you must be dreaming. I'm a professional photographer. I'm not someone who just does this on the side for a little extra cash or for exposure. I do this for a living. I'm the only christening photographer in our area, hence why all the priests all know me by name. They know me very well, and this is why I get booked for all these ceremonies extremely fast, as I can only do one christening or baptism that day. I wasn't hired by nor do I work for the church, which is why I don't work the entire church that day and photograph every single child or family there. I'm always hired by one family, so I get start to finish solely for them. If you want to hire me for a christening or a baptism, I charge about £85 and offer a lot for your money. Now, if you wouldn't mind, I'm working." And at that point, I turned and I went to walk away from her while her mouth was on the floor, because how dare a working peasant like me speak to her like that? My client came and found me after the service when I was about to get their family group photo shots. And before I could apologize for that stupid Karen bothering me the entire time, my client said to me, "Wow, you can hold your own. I was ready for something a lot worse than what you did, but you straight up told her you owe me £85. I mean, she is still staring at the floor. She doesn't know what to do." All in all, it was worth it to see my client feeling that I had just fought for her and her child's honor. Plus, other families were all smiling at me as well for how I handled the Karen. Even the priest came and found me afterwards and gave me a well done for how I handled her. So hopefully next time time, this Karen will learn that she will never get in the way of a photographer ever again. Good for the original poster. I can't stand people like this who think they can buy you for cheap for something that you know you're an expert at. Like 20 quid as a starting rate would be absolutely ridiculous, and 85 pounds sounds really close to what you should be starting at overall. Plus, the original poster is in high demand. This entitled Karen really thought she could walk up, smack this lady on the arm multiple times, and then be like, "Oh, please take pictures of my child." Like, no, lady, get lost. Take a hike and go find somebody else, which by the way, there is nobody else. So honestly, kudos to the original poster. They handled this like a pro, and they put that entitled Karen in her place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My coworker doesn't know that my boyfriend is also my coworker, and as a result, she is always and constantly complaining about him, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I've worked in this gas station chicken place for 4 months, and Sarah started a week after me. Sarah is not her real name. My boyfriend of 5 years started around a month ago. My boss is aware that we're together, but we don't act like we're dating at work, so I don't think most people know. Sarah acts completely different around my boss, my supervisor, and us. I don't know if she likes me, but she constantly talks bad at me when I don't talk to her. She isn't as aggressive with me as others, but she will try to point out things that she thinks I'm doing wrong. She'll make passive-aggressive comments, but will also suck it up to me for whatever reason. She is very rude to literally all of our coworkers that aren't supervisors. She snaps at them, tells them what to do, insults them, and tries to embarrass us in front of customers. We work without supervisors 2 days a week, and she is the rudest on these days and genuinely does nothing. Today, we have to clean this batter table and fryer every 6 cooks. All our food was full, she went over 1 cook already, and then left to chat with some guy that she knew. I told my boyfriend we had to start cleaning it, and I went to grab something, and she came back a bit later and told him to stop and asked him what he thought he was doing. He then said that we were supposed to clean it, and she said that she was going to cook something and that he needed her permission before cleaning it. He told her I had, and she apparently just stared at him. When I came back, she rushed to explain to me, but she didn't really say anything. We finished washing it, and she didn't even make what she said she was going to make, and apparently went and told my boss. She actually told him that she should be in charge while the main supervisor isn't there, and pretty much just said that my boyfriend was wrecking stuff. I don't know what the issue was, honestly. She was complaining about my boyfriend throughout the day and would try to scold him for things he wasn't involved in. A few hours later, the boss wanted to talk to me and asked if there was an issue with leadership and that she had complained about it and told him that she should be in charge. I explained what happened and that we had felt uncomfortable for a while around her, as did some of my other coworkers. He pretty much complained about her and said that he would talk to the supervisor about it. I'm worried because I feel like she is manipulative and I'm not sure how they actually feel about her. I feel uncomfortable working with her, and I'm not a combative person, and I don't know how to make her leave us alone. I don't think she knows that we're together and acts like he isn't allowed to do things that I do every day. What should I do? I think honestly you need to talk to your boss. They really need to know that she is telling you that you have to run everything by her, and in effect she is basically preventing you from doing your job. You could try to talk to her, but honestly you would be so much better off just talking to your boss and working it out that way. Like, let's face it, this coworker is not your supervisor or your superior in any way, yet she is still trying to order you and everybody else around. So it sounds like there's something wrong with management. They need to step up and get her back in line. And honestly, I think it's probably a good thing that you're keeping your relationship private with your coworkers. There's no reason for them to know, and I don't think telling her about your relationship with your boyfriend would solve any of your problems, because you know what? She might just turn on you and start treating you like garbage, just like the way she's treating your boyfriend. And while it is completely unacceptable for the way she's treating your boyfriend, I think, in my opinion, telling her that you guys are in a relationship is only going to compound this problem and make things just a bit worse. So hopefully management and your boss can step in and get this straightened out, because she is seriously being obnoxious and incredibly toxic, and you do not need that kind of energy in your life. My girlfriend gets upset when I talk to or spend time with my family or friends, and it's become incredibly obnoxious, and I seriously don't know what to do. So my girlfriend, despite being almost 20 years older than me, is very insecure and very sensitive when it comes to feeling like she's left out. She moved into my apartment a while ago, and since then, she lost her car and her house. So we share my car and live in my 1-bedroom apartment. I've lost a lot of my sense of independence and freedom from sharing my car and my space, and it was only a few months into the relationship that that she moved in. She essentially gets to take my car to work every day while I have to coordinate rides to and from work. Needless to say, it's a stressful situation for me. I haven't been able to make plans with friends due to not having access to my own car. So I try to maintain my relationships and my friendships over the phone, whether it be texting or FaceTime. The problem is, there is an air of distrust and annoyance when my girlfriend sees me on my phone, regardless of what I might be doing. I could be checking the weather or the time, and there is still a passive-aggressive response to this. I have never broken her trust, but she says she had bad past relationships. It is even to the point that even texting my mom back may trigger my girlfriend to be upset and to go to bed without talking to me for the rest of the night. She feels that recalling memories with friends or reminding my old college buddy about a fun time that we had back in college is synonymous with being unhappy and unfulfilled in the relationship. She gets upset if my friends know things before she does, even if I'm not talking about anything important. It could be something as minor as me watching a new TV show or me just looking at a funny meme. If she isn't the first to know, it becomes a fight. I feel like I'm losing my life and myself. I've lost my car, my space, and now it feels like my friends are being pushed aside simply to appease my girlfriend. I just don't know how much longer I can go on like this, and I feel like I'm putting what I want on the back burner. It worries me because I'm not yet 30 years old, and I feel like I need this time to solidify or maintain my friendships and work on myself. My girlfriend already has a grown son and has had a family. She has friends, she's already experienced her 30s, and I don't want to be held back or miss out and make a mistake. I don't want to end up in a place where I have no friends, no connections other than my significant other. I don't want to set myself up for isolation and regret it later in life. I simply don't want to miss out on my 30s. What should I do? Let me get this straight. You're dating someone almost 20 years older than you. For context, the guy in this story is 28 and his girlfriend is 48 years old. Why on earth are you dating someone 20 years older than you? And also, why are you putting up with someone treating you in this way? She is literally taking your belongings and taking your life away from you. Any kind of independence or any kind of friendship that you want to have with other people is getting stripped away by your girlfriend. And she doesn't sound like a good girlfriend to begin with. She sounds incredibly controlling, and it sounds like she's trying to isolate you from everybody else. And that's not fair for you in the slightest. And if I was in your shoes, I would be putting my foot down and saying enough is enough. It is not fair for you to have to coordinate rides when your car has basically been taken away from you by your girlfriend. It's also not fair that you can't have friends or even talk to your mom outside of your girlfriend. Just because she has this weird fear of missing out doesn't mean that you should be held back by her weird anxiety. You're clearly not cheating, and any kind of anxiety she has towards that is her problem, not yours. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would not be putting up with this, because you do have it right. Your 30s are coming up and you want to be able to enjoy them. And with the current trajectory that you're going on, I seriously see your girlfriend holding you back from having any kind of positive experience. My ex-girlfriend broke up with me just to see if I would fight for her, and I'm so hurt over this, I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my ex broke up with me. I knew it was coming because she would say that she needs time to think about stuff, and after 5 days of no contact at all, she said she wants to meet me, but not in my house, but rather somewhere else private. I took her a few things that she left me and I drove to her. She said she really wasn't happy. I had a tough time, I was moving places at the moment, and had a lot of bad stuff going on in my work. I was feeling pretty bad, and yeah, I might have been quite absent. I accepted it, I told her I don't really want to talk much about it, and I just drove off. She kept messaging me though, especially with asking me how my day was going and stuff like that. I decided to explain to her a little bit, as it felt so weird that we just broke up without even talking that much. I told her how I felt, and I said I was sorry, I just drove off like I didn't care. I just was simply accepting her decision. And that's when she said something to me that I really didn't expect. She told me she just wanted me to talk with her and try fighting for her. She says that she wants to try, but she lost her trust and would need me to try really hard for her to gain the trust back. But you know what? I really wasn't interested. I was in a really tough position in my life, and I wasn't feeling like doing so. In that period of talking time, I've noticed that she added her ex on Facebook, followed him on Instagram and such, and I immediately backed up. This was the moment I've realized that I lost the trust, and I told her that I do not really want to talk to her anymore. I basically just wanted to go no contact. And when I said that, she went absolutely crazy. She wanted to call me and all this other stuff, but I just went to sleep. I replied to her the next day, but she wasn't interested in talking anymore. So I just said goodbye. But when I review everything that happened, why do I feel so bad? Did I dodge something awful? I think I did the breakup thing to see if my partner cares when I was 16 years old. And back then, I noticed that this is a bad thing to do to someone. I'm obviously in a lot of pain, and yet I still got some feeling to message her, but I'm so unsure about the entire situation, I seriously don't know what to do. I would not waste my time with this ex for another second. She is just trying to play games. She literally broke up with you just so you could try and fight for her. That is not a good relationship. This is very childish and you don't need that. Like, you seriously dodged a major nightmare. She sounds incredibly insecure, and it's just not something that spells out to be a good relationship in my opinion. And you can bet that she will probably try this again. So in my opinion, your first instinct of saying, you know what, I want out, I'm not doing this, that is the feeling that I would hold on to, because she does not sound stable in the slightest, and she would just try to do this over and over again if you did decide to get back with her. Today, I messed up by learning that running down hills is incredibly bad, and I'm really glad I didn't break a bone. Here's what happened. So as the title suggests, I messed up on a hike with some friends. It was a really steep climb in California, and I was wearing some old Nikes with no grips on the sole. On the way down, I was slipping a bunch, so I decided to try walking on the balls of my feet and sort of hopped along so I didn't slip. My hopping turned into play running, and soon I unexpectedly started to pick up a ton of speed fast. Since the hill was so steep, I was soon full-on sprinting against my own will, Olympic level fast. My body was essentially perpendicular to the hill while I Usain bolted down the slope full of uneven terrain. My feet were moving level 14 on the treadmill fast just to stop me from falling, and there was no way to slow myself down. It was then that I knew I had two possibilities that were seconds away from occurring. The first possibility was that my ankle would be broken by stepping into one of the many cracks on the ground and risk having to have my friends carry me the rest of the way down. The second option is to just fall and pray for the best. I decided to take control of my own destiny and make a calculated dive. This decision must have happened on the time scale of milliseconds. At once, I stopped moving my feet and fell forward into a pile of bushes and foliage. My body kept sliding down for several seconds due to the sheer momentum as branches and plants cut open my hands, as well as my arms, leg, and Patagonia jacket. At this point, my friends were still like 50 yards up the hill from me, walking at a careful pace as normal people do when going downhill. Two hikers over to my right called out to ask if I was okay, and I did one of those, yes, I'm fine, but please just leave me here, it's fine. And thankfully, they just kept walking away. I flipped over onto my back, and soon my friends and boyfriend came to see if I was okay. Apparently, it was quite the sight for them. I apparently looked like a drunk baseball player sliding into home base as my legs went up in the air, sliding down on my stomach. It was not a very fun experience. I am more or less fine. I've got some bruised fingers and toes and some scrapes pretty much everywhere, but luckily I don't have any broken bones, and you know what? I'll take that. Honestly, the most disturbing thing of all is that I've never heard any guidance against running downhill. I googled it afterwards just to see how big of an idiot I really was and saw nothing online. So while I definitely messed up, I sincerely hope that this post is also an opportunity that prevents at least one other person from deciding to run down a steep hill, because trust me, it is simply not worth it. I've got to be honest, that seriously is my nightmare. Like, that just sounds unbelievably scary, running down a hill and you have no control over your speed. So it really does come down to those two options. You either break a bone or you make a dive for it. And I think the original poster had the right idea. Make a dive and see what happens, because otherwise you're just gonna get more hurt. So good for them for not breaking any bones. I think they seriously got off lucky, and hopefully the next time they go hiking, they actually bring along some shoes that have some good traction. My entitled sister tries to falsely accuse me of buying drinks for her party, and after I'm proven innocent, my mom demands that I take the fall for it just so her favorite child, my sister, doesn't have to go to jail. And I am still blown away by this level of entitlement, as well as the actions of my mom and my sister. Here's what happened. So this happened some years ago. I'm in my 30s now, but back then I was 22. My sister was 18 and was my mom's golden child. My dad thankfully has a good head on his shoulders and always called my sister out on her garbage. But my mom's interference always meant my sister got off easy anyways. This is what happened back then. My parents decided to take a vacation to ski in Aspen and let my sister watch the house for them. They told her no parties, but that was a rule she straight up ignored. A day after our parents left, my sister started sending out invites to a party, and she she was promising free alcohol. Now, I didn't see that post yet, but my sister called me and asked me to go get alcohol for her party because I was over 21 and I could legally buy it. She also wanted me to pay for it and said she'd invite me to the party as well as introduce me to an easy girl in order to pay me back. I told her that I wasn't going to break the law to make her happy. She should have never told people that her party would have alcohol. She screamed at me over the phone that I was ruining her life and that she couldn't take back the invites now that they were all over Facebook. I looked at her post and I facepalmed. I told her that what she did was really stupid and she and her friends were all underage, so it's illegal. She then tried to say that it would only be illegal if I narked on them. I said I wouldn't narc, but I wasn't going to buy her any alcohol either. She screamed at me some more, and so I just hung up the phone. Well, that night my sister had the party, and someone called the police for underage drinking. After being arrested and confronted by the police later on, my sister threw me under the bus and said that I'd supplied the alcohol that she was using. It turns out she actually broke into my dad's liquor cabinet and thought it would be better to frame me for her crime. The police came and arrested me at my apartment the day after the party. They seemed already convinced I was guilty and didn't really listen to me when I said I was never there, but I willingly cooperated with them. At the station, I told them the whole story, and I got them to look at my sister's Facebook post. Thankfully, there were a few people there who listened to me, but I still had to sit the night out in a cell while my parents were called. My mom and dad flew back home overnight and bailed out both my sister and myself, but my mom tried to make my dad leave me in jail because my sister had told them her lies as well. But my dad took the time to talk to me and look at my sister's Facebook post, so he believed me. This caused a fight between him and my mom, and when they got home, my dad discovered my sister had broken into his liquor cabinet and spoke to the police on my behalf. My mom, however, still wanted the blame to fall on me because, as she put it, the charges were ruining her baby's future. But my innocence was further proven by the fact that I and my car were seen on CCTV when I left work, and when I arrived home soon after, as the apartment I was living in then had CCTV cameras to watch the parking lot, and my car did not move from there for the rest of the day, as well as the night. In my sister's story to the police, I had driven out and gotten alcohol for her, but I wasn't seen on camera in any liquor store in the county, and my bank account showed no transactions buying alcohol. My parents' house also had a camera at the front door, and my car was never seen in the driveway that day. After being confronted with all those facts, my sister's story changed to saying that I had already had the alcohol and I gave it to her at my apartment. But my sister's car had never shown up at my apartment either, and there was like 3 cheap beers in my apartment fridge at that, and no hard alcohol. My sister finally had to give up on her lies, and my parents were severely disappointed in her. But my mom still tried to convince me to take the fall for my sister. She came to my apartment and actually demanded that I tell the police that it was my fault. I said I wasn't going to ruin my future for my sister. She refused to leave and went from demanding to begging. She even got on her knees and tried to convince me that she and my dad would make everything okay in the long run. I just had to take the blame right now. I said I'd rather live my life poor than have that felony on my record. She then threw a huge fit and started throwing things because I refused to do as she wanted. I threatened to call the police, and she left my apartment cussing me out like a madwoman. I've never heard so many curse words out of her before or since, but she kept them up all the way to her car and followed it up by saying that she wished she never had me, all before driving off. I called my dad right away and told him everything that happened. He was insanely upset and got in a huge fight with my mom as soon as she got home. She didn't even deny anything she said or did because she deemed it would have been for the greater good of their daughter. But my dad told her that she couldn't destroy me to save my sister. Then he threatened to divorce her if she didn't try to make things right. She ended up sobbing and then said that she would do whatever he wanted. My dad said that it was couple and family counseling or it was a divorce. My mom signed a prenup before she married him and really had no choice. In the family counseling, I called her out on how she always believed my sister's lies. My sister tried to say they were not lies, but each one I pointed out from over the years said otherwise. I had taken the time to write a list of all the ones I could remember from the past decade that had all been proven that she lied, and my mom and sister were forced to stay silent as I read them all. They tried to interject repeatedly, but my dad and the counselor silenced them. My sister was now proven beyond a doubt to be a liar and a manipulator, and she just shut down and refused to say anything more to the counselor. And my mom finally apologized to me, but it was obviously a forced apology because she looked so uncomfortable doing it. I told her that her apology was very fake, and after so many years of favoritism, the damage was already done. My relationship with her never really recovered because she was convinced I was guilty no matter what she said until my sister admitted the truth, and then wanted me to pretend to be the guilty one anyways, just to protect her favorite child. But nothing went her way, so she just went back to crying all about it. When my sister went to court, my mom pleaded with the judge to go easy on my sister for charges of underage drinking and giving other underage people alcohol, as well as attempting to frame me for her crime. She also resisted arrest when the police came over and shut down the party. She was very under the influence when it happened. They kept her in a cell overnight to sober up, and then she told the police I'd been the one to provide the alcohol. My mom's begging, along with a relentless lawyer my parents hired. Eventually, they got the judge to cut a deal, provided my sister pled guilty, which she did not want to do, but her lawyer highly recommended that she take the deal to avoid jail time, because there was no other way of keeping her from getting a felony on her record. My sister's lawyer used the fact that the alcohol had not been bought that day, but rather had already been in the house long before the party happened, to lessen the charges overall. My sister's Facebook had also been completely deleted by her as soon as she was able to in order to hide the post. The judge just wanted the case to be over with, so my sister got off with a huge fine that our mom paid most of it out of her own pocket, while also ensuring that she was going to have a couple of years of probation. She was also made to get therapy too by our dad. She's never really showed any actual remorse for what she did though, and only had animosity for me no matter how in the wrong she was. She was eventually diagnosed as a narcissist after dad made her go see a doctor. After her probation and 4 years of college were over, she decided she was going to leave home for California and never come back once she landed a good job. She currently works in an office in LA, and we have not spoken in years. My dad got her that job, and she has not shown any real appreciation for it in the slightest. Even my mom has given up on her ever coming home for the holidays and us being a family again. It tore her up inside for a few years, but now she's just bitter. She doesn't really blame me anymore, but we only seem to show indifference to each other. Now, just because my sister cut off my mom wouldn't make me the new de facto favorite. It just means my mom lost her baby and isn't getting her back. She can't leave my dad because she's too reliant on him. Despite having her own career, she would never want to be on her own again, so she's just become a shell of her former self. Things between me and my dad are still great. He's pretty much disowned my sister for what she's done and stopped caring if she'll ever talk to him again. He and my mom don't even sleep in the same bedroom anymore. She moved into the guest room about 5 years ago and has been staying there. So hopefully things work out in my life and I don't have to deal with my sister ever again. What a crazy circumstance to be stuck in. Your sister not only tried to get you to have a felony, but your mom also literally tried to force you to take the fall for this, all because they clearly have favoritism towards her. And that is not fair at all. Like, that is seriously insane to me. If I was in your shoes, there's no way I would take the fall for this in the slightest. Your sister absolutely got what she deserved. She broke into that cabinet and got the drinks for her and her friends, even though she knew she shouldn't have. And when she got caught red-handed, she tried to blame you. Like, that honestly is crazy to me. So hopefully you don't have to deal with her that much in the future, because she seriously sounds unhinged, and hopefully with her moving across the country, this will hopefully turn out to be a good thing for you and your family in the long run. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My fiance has not allowed me to have any alone time in almost 8 years, as he is constantly all over me, trying to be involved in my life no matter what. And I am literally at my wit's end, and I seriously don't know what to do. So we first started dating almost 8 years ago. I own my own house, and he rented an apartment. Right off the bat, he started wanting to be together pretty regularly. Initially, I thought it was just the honeymoon phase. I attempted to set boundaries and started by trying to let me have one set day a week to myself. On that day, he would call me with plans and ideas, but then say something like, "Oh, but it's your day to yourself. I guess we can't do anything." So I changed it up to a floating day. That way, if something was going on, he wouldn't feel like it's off limits. Eventually, he would call me crying that I didn't want to see him on those days, and I would cave and let him come over because I would feel horrible. About 3 months in, I invited him to stay over one night. night, and he essentially never left. He was over all the time, and my ability to have alone time completely disappeared. When I would ask him to give me space, he would say that he doesn't understand why I would need alone time, or vaguely accuse me of cheating because I wanted time away from him. He would tell me that on my car ride to work, I'm alone, so that counts as alone time. If I wanted to go out with friends without him, he would get upset because he didn't understand why I would want space away from him. I would come home and he would give me the silent treatment for a while. I would take the small times when he was at work and I had a day off for my alone time. I've worked full time, so it was a rare occasion, but I needed them. But almost 3 years ago, he completely quit his job. He said he wanted to be a Twitch streamer and he wanted to pursue that. And I don't know what's going on with that because he doesn't want to speak to me about that. This meant that he was home all the time. He schedules time with his friends while I'm working and will only do things while I'm at work. If I get home and he's playing video games with his friends, he will quit the games and come spend time with me. About 2 months ago, he got a new job, but made sure to find something he could work from home to do. Although now he's complaining, and I think he will be quitting that as well. This is not what I want out of my life, but I also don't even know where to begin to get out. If I'm being completely honest, I'm a little afraid of him. He is just always very quick to anger with strangers, and he always has confrontations with others. I have animals to take care of, as well as my elderly mom now, because my dad recently passed away. I'm at my wit's end. I feel like I've completely lost myself, and I don't trust myself at all. I have felt like this isn't healthy, but he is so adamant that I'm wrong, I simply don't know what to think anymore. You need to tell him to buzz off. First off, how did this guy become your fiance? He is acting so weird and so controlling. He is basically trying to interject himself into every aspect of your life. Like literally the time to stand up for yourself was 7 years ago. I would not be able to put up with this for almost a decade. That literally would have been awful. Like, why on earth does he need to spend every waking moment with you? He is clearly just trying to guilt trip you and gaslight you by saying, oh, if you're ever away from me, it must mean that you're cheating on me. Like, that's crazy. You don't need that in your life. He is clearly manipulative, and that is honestly very creepy behavior. Can you even imagine having to marry that and permanently dealing with that on a daily basis? That would honestly be pretty obnoxious. So in my opinion, it's not only crazy to put up with this, but even crazier for someone to ask it of you. Like, in my opinion, everybody needs their own space, and everyone needs a social life outside of their partner. And I feel that someone who doesn't give you that kind of space is ultimately having a negative impact in your life. So hopefully you can get this figured out, because what you're describing sounds incredibly exhausting and claustrophobic, and you seriously do not deserve this in the slightest. Today, I messed up by showing my English teacher a short story that I had written, and as a result, my family disowned me and has now kicked me out of the house, all because of this short story, and I'm now seriously stuck in a place where I don't know what to do. So to start things off, I'm an 18-year-old high school student who loves writing. Ever since I was little, I had enjoyed creating stories. However, I could never stick with a story and continue writing it. Recently, I had a dream, and the dream was a wonderful idea for a story. So I had begun writing it, and within a week, I had a short story of the basic idea for a much larger game or book. I yearn for much needed criticism. My writing isn't great, but it's not terrible. However, I can't successfully place my thoughts on paper with few grammatical errors. So let's begin with where I messed up. I live in a small town in Georgia of about 200 people. The town is super religious, and my story was rather graphic. The story in and of itself was a nice love story between two male soldiers set in a post-nuclear apocalyptic setting. The story doesn't have anything sketchy or anything like that, and was simply a love story that happened to be between two men. But the zombies and their descriptions were very graphic. I had finished the short story, and I asked my English teacher for some much-needed feedback. I sent it to her in a Google Doc, and she said she would read it over the break. Well, we come back over break, and my English teacher called my parents and asked for them to come in for a talk. Today, I waited after school for my parents, and they came to the school to talk to my teachers. My parents are, by the way, as you probably can guess, super duper religious, and I was afraid they would be angry due to the graphic content. My English teacher was very upset about the contents of the book, not because of the zombies that got slaughtered, but because of the ungodly relationship, as they described it, between the two main characters. My English teacher would go on to read the story aloud, which not only made me cringe because who actually likes to hear their own writing, but my parents grew very angry with what I thought was a very sweet love story. 4 hours later, my parents have kicked me out of their house. They accused me of being gay when in reality I'm not. I just thought writing writing a love story between two men would be interesting enough because it's something I could never experience. Currently, I'm staying with a friend and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might just couch hop until I can get off to college in September. On Facebook, I am getting absolutely blasted by everybody, especially our church group, which I did rather like. This is all so frustrating and I seriously don't know what to do. That is an awful situation. And seriously, your parents suck. Like, they are awful parents. And that English teacher also sucks. They literally kicked you out of the house for something that isn't real. This was a fictional story. It didn't happen and it's not real. Regardless of your religious orientation or however you feel about God or anything like that, to kick your kid out of their house for something they wrote down that is not only real but also entirely fictional is, in my opinion, so gross and disgusting. Like, I just can't imagine you doing that to your own child. I mean, how can you honestly profess that you follow any religious deity and claim to be someone who loves one another and tries to help other people around you and be charitable and all that other stuff, while also in the same breath kicking out your child simply because you're making assumptions about them? And this is all literally over a short, fictitious story that they wrote just for the heck of it. Like, I seriously can't imagine you sucking that much as a parent to do that to your own child. So to the original poster, I am seriously so sorry that you're dealing with this. Your parents are being ridiculous, and hopefully when you go off to college, you don't have to deal with them. So hopefully things work out and you're able to find some kind of solution. An entitled Karen makes a scene in Barnes & Noble, literally screaming about the outrageous prices, demanding that the hourly worker she was screaming at call up corporate and get something done about this. And this experience gave me some serious secondhand embarrassment. Here's what happened. So my husband and I sometimes love to go do an impromptu date to Barnes & Noble where we will go get breakfast and then go to the store and wander around. He usually heads to the manga section and I roam around fiction and fantasy. And usually we end up walking out with a handful of new books. It is super fun and we get to show each other what we like and get ideas for future gifts and whatnot. Anywho, we were there this past Saturday and had taken a specifically long time picking out books, so we were finally ready to leave and go home. Fast forward to us standing in line and it's great. There's only one person in front of us and one person checking out. And this is the entitled Karen of the story. This woman starts complaining about the price of every single thing as it's scanned at the register, going so far to say the teenager working absolutely must pass it on to corporate about how ridiculously expensive prices are and how it makes her not want to go there anymore. The teenager keeps trying to get her to finish checking out, but she keeps getting louder. At one point, she actually turned around to look at other people in line, and I guess she was trying to get some kind of support or something. I'm just wishing she would hurry up and stop making a scene. The kid working finally asked her if she needs a bag for 10 cents, and she flips out. It's important to note that in our state, they made it mandatory for stores to start charging for plastic bags and will ban them permanently in the next couple of years. So this shouldn't be a surprise to her at this point, since it's been in effect for about 3 months. She says to this poor worker, "Now you want to charge me for a bag? This is outrageous. You need to talk to your corporate office and do something about this." The cashier, who is also my hero, literally did not react at all to her screaming at him and was just like, "Okay, have a nice day." Anyways, I almost cheered when she finally left the store. Like, if you don't want to pay that price, just leave and don't shop there. You screaming at the top of your lungs at an hourly teenager and holding the line up isn't going to change anything, and you aren't getting any support from anyone by acting like a fool. I really can't stand when people act like this in public. They make a scene, they're trying to make some kind of weird point, and then they look around like, "Ooh, who has my back? Who's gonna support me in this weird outburst I'm currently conducting?" Like, seriously, get over yourself. The employee that you're yelling at literally cannot change the prices, and they cannot change the fact that it's gonna cost 10 cents to get a bag. Now, for me personally, I think charging 10 cents for a bag is really dumb, but I'm not about to start screaming at some hourly worker and demanding that they do something about this. Like, what are they gonna do? Call up corporate and be like, "You better stop doing this right now." Like, that's honestly ridiculous, and this entitled Karen was completely out of line. My entitled sister intentionally gets pregnant just so she can get back on the family will, as well as get back in my life and my parents' life. Here's what happened. So this story is an update to a previous story we had on the channel, where the original poster's sister got convicted of a crime and was nearly forced by their mother to try and fall on this crime. But thankfully, they didn't give in to the weird demands of the sister and the mom, and as a result, the sister got in trouble and the original poster got off scot-free, as they should. Here's an update to what happened next. My sister sank to a new low of manipulation with this one. A couple of months ago, she suddenly showed up at our parents' house with a boyfriend in tow and a positive pregnancy test, and saying that she was 2 months along. She claimed that she wanted to make amends so her child would be able to know their grandparents. Now, I saw this for what it was from the start. My sister went out of her way to get pregnant, so dad would put her back in the will, and mom would have to make her the golden child again. Yeah, I know, crazy stuff all around to catch up on, but things didn't go down that way in the slightest. It was February when my sister showed up all of the sudden. She had taken a leave from work to come see us. She even tried to act all smiles around me, but I could still see the hate in her eyes. We were definitely not on good terms. She still blamed me, and she never stopped blaming me for her problems, but she pretended that she'd seen the error of her ways. My mom seemed to buy her act, but my dad didn't at all. Though my parents having a grandchild is something that they've been longing for, so they begrudgingly accepted my sister back for this moment, but not without making sure whether or not this was some kind of con. And spoiler alert, it definitely was. My dad suggested that my sister should take another pregnancy test just to confirm, and he requested that simply because this is how my sister is. She really is that weird. We expected her to protest, but she took the one my dad got and willingly used it, and it was positive. So she was indeed very pregnant. My parents asked for some time alone with my sister, so I went home and I didn't see them again until the next day's evening. And it was then that I got the details from my parents. The evening before, they'd had a long talk with my sister about all the things that she's done, and told her that they will help support their grandchild and set up a college fund for them. But if my sister wanted a place back in the family, then she's going to have to work hard for it and prove that she's changed. Because it was obvious with the timing of the pregnancy that she only got pregnant to try and get back in the family's good graces. She denied this, of course, but her past actions spoke for themselves. Our parents wanted her to seek therapy, both individual and group with them over video calls. And they also wanted her to apologize to me for what she did years ago, since she always refused to do it. And that's when she finally broke and said that I don't deserve an apology, because I'm the reason she got her life ruined to begin with. Well, when my dad heard that, he didn't let that slide in the slightest, and practically started shouting at her. And then he told her that she was never grateful for anything they did for her, and that she was only blaming me so she wouldn't have to take fault for her own actions. My mom chimed in and said that she had to realize her own past actions were wrong, like when she tried to force me to take the blame for my sister back then so her baby wouldn't get in trouble, and how she'd said those horrible things to me when I refused. And if she could genuinely admit her wrongs, my sister could too. Well, my sister flipped out and left with her boyfriend. The few times I met the guy, I could tell he was only with my sister for the money, because she treated him like absolute garbage. She even elbowed him in the stomach once right in front of me. Anyway, my sister came back the next day with a long rehearsed apology for them, with crocodile tears included. And again, the only reason our parents let her back in was because of her pregnancy. She was set up back in her old room and spent the next few days trying to act all smiles. But her act was pretty bad. She was still expected to give me that long overdue apology, and I even met up with her and her boyfriend at a local restaurant our parents picked out. We figured if she was going to give me anything even remotely genuine as an apology, it couldn't be around our parents. She started off the apology by basically murmuring, and when my boyfriend wanted her to speak up, that's when she elbowed him in the stomach, and she did it really hard too. He asked to be excused and left us one-on-one. As soon as he was gone, my sister started what's more of a non-apology, basically saying that she was sorry for what happened with trying to frame me, but also said that it still would have never happened if I had just gone with it that day and gotten the alcohol for the party, and then we could have both had a great time. I countered that she still didn't get it. She straight up framed me, and when the cops were called on her, it had nothing to do with me. So if I had helped out that day, then I would have been arrested and charged too. I got up and said she still hasn't changed. She only lives in her little self-important world, and then I just walked out. When our parents learned of this, my sister tried to deny the word that she'd spoken to me, but my dad knows the owner of that restaurant. We were seated away from the other noisy guests, and we were put right below a CCTV camera with audio, and it caught everything. And my parents had the video within hours from the restaurant owner. They played it in front of my sister and told her this is exactly why she's not getting much in her will. Her child might be, but not her. That's when she threw a tantrum and walked out screaming at them. And this time she did not come back. She she got in her car and drove all the way back to LA without another word to any of us. She later called to say her boyfriend had left her and she didn't know where he was. As I thought, he was clearly in it for the money, and when their con failed, he cut her loose. So now my sister is around 4 months pregnant with her baby daddy pulling a runner. She is still sending our parents updates on the pregnancy, and my parents are having a very hard time dealing with the fact that their future grandchild is basically being used as an attempted bargaining chip for my sister to worm her way back in. So it really is sad that she left my mother heartbroken all over again, our father beyond disappointed, as well as trying to make me the mental scapegoat simply because she can't admit her own faults. She hasn't changed a bit, and I really don't think she ever will. What a crazy update to this story. For context, the sister in this story that was kind of estranged and came back as pregnant and trying to get back in the will of the family is someone who tried to blame their other sister, who is the original poster, of a crime that they did not commit. Like, it really is crazy, and it's something we covered previously on the channel. So the fact that she would come back into everybody's life and basically be like, hey, I'm pregnant. Can I please be back in the family? I'll be the favorite again. Like, that is honestly insane to me. So good for the family as well as the original poster for all basically coming together and saying, no, you are full of it and we see through all of your lies. And I honestly don't blame the dad for being like, oh, okay, you're pregnant? Yeah, do another pregnancy test. Based on the way this person is described, it kind of adds up that they would have to do this. This really is a messed up situation, and hopefully for the sake of everybody in that family, it all works out in the end. Because otherwise, there's just going to be more drama and more problems. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My partner has been spending a little bit too much time with someone from her work and has recently gone over to his house without telling me in the first place. And this is all so very confusing, and I seriously don't know what to do. So first, for a bit of context, I will try and keep this as concise as possible. Years ago, my partner cheated on me. I felt like something was going on in my gut with her roommate, and after weeks, she said nothing. I finally confronted her, and she admitted that they had been together once. But after asking her to show me her phone, it was pretty apparent that it was happening several times over a period of time. They were practically dating, and that turned into a whole situation where I left the relationship. During this period, they sought mental help and got diagnosed with a mental health condition. They started to go to therapy and take medication, and generally got a little bit healthier. After a year, we ended up getting back in touch, and she had really matured. All of the steps that she had taken seemed to have really been huge for her. She is my best friend, I love her, and I decided that I would be willing to start seeing her again under the condition that she never lied to me again. And also, she needs to continue therapy and continue taking her medication. Fast forward 4 years, and things have been great. I've been working out issues that I have with betrayal as well as trust issues, and of course, it's been very difficult, but she has been generally very understanding and at least willing to work at it. Over this time period though, she started feeling that her medication was dulling her, so she decided she would stop taking her meds. She told me that she talked to her doctor about this, and this is what they decided on together, and she stopped going to therapy. Right at this time, we had made the decision to find a place and move in together. Fast forward to this year, and generally speaking, things have been completely up and down on a roughly 3-month cycle with our relationship. I've only just now started to recognize the patterns, but how we are doing seems to go from either the best it's ever been to completely disconnected. So with that bit of context in mind, this is my conundrum, and I'm honestly really trying hard to keep my hands on the keyboard as I type this, so maybe this part won't be so long. Now, there's also someone else in the picture that my partner works with, who we will call John. That's not their real name. Over the past year, my partner and John have gotten close. It went from John being someone that they thought was cool and they liked joking around with at work, to someone that they said they mutually told each other that they could see themselves being very close and spending time with each other outside of work. Once it got to that point, my partner totally stopped communicating to me about John. This was about 6 months ago as well. It's as if John no longer existed, but when my partner would invite me to work social events, her and John would be very close. John used to say hello to me and we would talk, but now John doesn't make eye contact with me anymore, let alone speak to me, even when I try to. At one of the recent events, there was a lot of drinking going on. My partner and John would be very close and touchy-feely with each other, and when I would come over, John would immediately leave. But I noticed that when I would leave my partner, all of a sudden John would come back. They have started started saying I love you to each other, which I guess friends can say, but I usually reserve that for my relationships, my family, or really, really close friends. And the way they say I love you to one another has changed to this soft and subtle tone. One night, sitting on the couch, I saw a message notification from John. They were sharing pictures back and forth, and my partner replied with a message saying, "So you were even attractive with long hair too." Finally, after the most recent work social event, I asked my partner if anything was happening between her and John. Her response was no way. John has a long-term partner. Then, a few days later, my partner got upset at me for thinking that there could be anything going on between them. Now, my partner has been staying at work late or hanging out with friends after work almost every other day the past 2 weeks, which isn't a big deal. I totally get that. But after the third time, I felt like this behavior is odd for my partner because with their line of work, they typically want to get home and shower because they are exhausted after work. So she called me at lunch asking what I thought we should do for dinner, and I said I would go to the store and pick up something to cook, and she said that she'd see me after work. Well, after I got home, and about an hour before she gets off, she texted me saying she was going to hang out with some friends after work. I said, okay, I guess that sounds good, and I decided I would wait and run to the store a little bit later to avoid rush hour traffic. I headed to the grocery store at around 7 o'clock p.m., which is an hour after my partner usually gets off work. While I was out, I decided I would drive past John's house. Well, out in front of John's house was my partner's car. I went back home, made dinner, and did some work while I waited for my partner. 9:30 p.m. rolled around, and I was still waiting, and I was feeling a lot of anxiety. So I got in my car and I went for a drive, as it usually helps me calm down. When I came in, she asked how I was. I said I was fine and went out for a drive. I then asked her how her day was, and she said it was just all right. I asked her how the hangout was after work, and she said it was good, and that they went to a happy hour at some Mexican place near her job. I said, that's nice. And then I asked her if that was it, if that's all that she got into, or if she decided to go anywhere else. And she said yes, everyone just lost track of time. I then said that's really nice that it seemed they all had a good time, and I know that she had been hoping that the work crew would invite her out for a few months now, and that I'm glad it finally happened. She said, yep, she was glad it happened too. After that, I went to bed. I finally had something planned for us to go talk to someone, but obviously that has changed now, as I need to handle this first because I don't want her to feel ambushed in any type of session we may have. I don't know why she was at John's house, and I don't know what they could have been doing, but I do know that she lied to me, and I gave her a couple of outs to just say something about John's house, and now I'm confused, and I don't know why you would lie about that, especially with our history, and I just don't know how to have a calm conversation about it without her blowing up and getting angry and defensive when I just want to live my life and I'm tired and I just want to know the truth and communicate. And now I have to live with this implication that I've been feeling gaslit for the past 6 months and my gut has been going crazy, and all of that might be valid. How should I handle this with my partner? How do I have a conversation about this? What should I do? This definitely is a sketchy situation. She's not being honest with you about John, most likely because she knows that you will get upset. There's a very high likelihood that something's going on between the two of them. They're saying that they love each other, and she lied about being at his house. That is a big red flag in my opinion. So this is definitely a conversation you need to have, because otherwise who knows what's going on? And I think you have every right to know exactly what's happening between the two of them, because based on what you've described, this does not sound like a normal relationship. And if anything, I think there might be something more going on. A woman I met long distance over a dating app turns out to be not my type physically, and now I don't know how to break the news to her that I am not actually interested in her and I don't want to continue dating. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, I matched with this girl on a dating app 3 to 4 months back, and we immediately hit it off. We could talk about anything and everything under the sun. She's insanely intelligent, she's really funny, mature, loving, and an all-around amazing person. We would text and talk every single day, and hours upon hours would go by, and we wouldn't notice at all. We became an inherent part of each other's lives, texting and calling at work, at home, while sleeping, morning calls, you name it. We are both looking for a serious relationship, which would lead to marriage, and after a long while, I found someone I connected with on every level. It felt so amazing that we even talked about getting engaged and talking to each other's parents in a few months' time. She would ask me to send my pictures on Snapchat, with and without filters, but but she would send them very sparsely, and usually would send them with filters on or with a side face. We decided to meet in a city together and spend time with each other, and this is when the problem started. The woman I thought I was going to spend my life with, I am just not physically attracted to. She's everything a guy would want, but I just can't get past some of her looks. Now don't get me wrong, she is fit and she has an amazing body, but it's just not for me. I mean, I kept comparing her looks to other women on the street, and I know I'm a horrible person, but it's been giving me sleepless nights. She keeps saying I love you and spending our lives together. She even doubled her efforts because I think she's onto the fact that I'm not feeling it. I just can't bring myself to tell her that I love her when I can't feel it. I really just cannot fake it. I really do not want to hurt her, and telling her that I am not attracted to her after all we have done would be an absolute horrible move. She deserves way better than that. How am I supposed to deal with this situation? What should I do? I think you need to be honest with this lady. She deserves to know that, you know what, this is just not working out. For you to lead her on and be like, yeah, let's keep on going with this. That would be awful. She doesn't deserve that. You already met her in person and you know for a fact, sorry, I just don't like you like that. And sometimes looks do make a difference. What would be somebody's dream girl for you is clearly just not something you're interested in. And that is really unfortunate because it sounds like you two had a really good future ahead of you, but it's clearly not clicking. So honestly, I would break it off sooner than later. She deserves to know the truth, and I honestly don't think you should lead her on in the slightest. My girlfriend of 2 years wants to take a break with me, where she can do whatever she wants with other men while she's away on this break. But now she's telling me that we have a 50-50 chance of getting back together again, and I'm so confused and I feel so hurt over what she's saying that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been dating for 2+ years and everything has been fine, but as of last night, we got into a small argument, and that led her to the conclusion that she wants space and wants to take a break for a month. I told her I understand and that I respect that, as maybe some space would be good for us. But then she mentions that during this break, it doesn't matter if she does any other scandalous stuff with other men, if you know what I mean, as it will all mean nothing and she still loves me. Now, this just raised a bunch of flags in my brain, because why would you even mention that to me? And on top of that, why, if you love me, would you do that in the first place? I then told her that taking a break just feels like stepping stones that leads to the end of a relationship. But she says she still loves me and wants to be with me, but just needs a month break from me. So that means no texting or calling or seeing each other. It's just all so confusing to me because it feels like she just doesn't want to be with me in that way. She always keeps mentioning all the scandalous stuff and how it won't mean anything to her, especially if she does it with someone else during this month, claiming that because she still loves me, it's okay. But that seriously bothers me so much, I just don't know if I'm overreacting over this. It feels like she's dumping me with a string attached to yank me back in whenever she wants, and I honestly feel like it's not fair. I told her a month just feels too long for me, and I would want an answer sooner so I don't have to wait a month with a false sense of hope for it to all come crashing down and end up heartbroken all over again. What should I do? So basically, your girlfriend wants to be able to cheat on you with permission. Her saying, oh, let's take a month off so I can mess around with other guys, which by the way, I still love you, is literally just a hall pass for her to go mess around. Like she's literally saying, hey, I want to break up for a month so I can sleep around with other guys. Is that okay? And naturally, your response is to be like, wait a second, what is happening here? Like, it really sounds like your girlfriend is not loyal. She clearly wants to break up to spend time with some guy you don't know about, and it's obviously going to be at your expense. Like, seriously, this is unbelievably toxic. And I know if I was in your shoes and my girlfriend was saying this kind of stuff, I would start the process of grieving the loss of my relationship sooner than later. Like, this is really bad. This is really like the end of your relationship potentially. Also, it's important to note that she is straight up playing games. She is literally stringing you along by saying, well, maybe we'll get back together. That is absolute nonsense. Do not fall for that. You shouldn't take that at face value because you know what? She's probably not going to get back with you. Fast forward a month and I guarantee you she's going to be like, oh, I found another guy, I'm going to go with him. Or some other garbage might come up. So hopefully you're able to make the right decision in this situation and maintain some kind of happiness in your life. Because based on what you're describing, your girlfriend is about to do something pretty stupid. And if you're not careful, you're going to be caught emotionally in the crossfire. An entitled Karen gets in my face and starts screaming at me, simply because she doesn't know where her item is that she's trying to buy. And after screaming at me for several minutes, this entitled Karen demands that I do my job. So as a result, I decide to maliciously comply and I get revenge in the best way possible. impossible. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I work in an online fulfillment center, and this is at a large home, garden, and building supply store. I think you can use your imagination as to what it is. My job title will come into play later, as technically we aren't supposed to work with customers directly. Just point them in the direction they're supposed to go, or find another associate who works in that department. I had a massive order to grab, several heavy and large pieces of sheet metal and screws. The problem is that the metal sheet size I need isn't where it's meant to be, so I'm having to scan pretty much everything to figure out what's what. But you know what the bigger problem is? This lingering in the wild sadly put me in the range of a wild Karen attack. And that's when this entitled Karen came storming up in a harpy voice. She looked at me and said, "Are you gonna help me or not?" I looked around, suddenly very confused. I looked at her, especially as she hadn't spoken to me at all. This entitled Karen looks at me incredibly annoyed, and she says to me, "Well, I've been standing over there forever, and you haven't offered to help me at all." Still trying to get my bearings, I look at her and I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. I can try. I don't work in this department, so it will really depend on what you're looking for." Now, when I said this entitled Karen suddenly gets incredibly hostile. She looks at me and says, "Try? You're gonna try to help me? No, you will help me. It doesn't matter if you work in this department or not." Now, at this point, I'm trying to calm myself down and take some deep breaths, just so I don't lash out and say something I will regret. Also, I'm just wondering what this lady's problem is. I look at her and I say, "Okay, what do you need?" And I was definitely unable to control the annoyance in my tone, as this entitled Karen just kept yelling at me. She looks at me and says, "I need this." And she suddenly pulls out a screw and nearly stabs me in the eye by shoving it forward. Now, when she did this, I definitely pushed her hand away, and I was feeling much less calm, as I have PTSD related to people putting hands in my face, much less a screw. Now, at this point, I'm visibly shaking. I say to her, "Okay, ma'am, screws are at the end of the aisle on the left." But the entitled Karen wasn't having that. She screamed at me, "I already know that." So I respond back in a not so nice tone, "Okay, what size is that? What size do you need?" She then gets right up in my face, pretty much out of nowhere, and she screams at me, "You tell me." And once she did that, I decided to get malicious and get back at her in the best way I knew how. After having taken this for just about the last time, and since I was unable to hold it back, I said to her, "I have no clue, ma'am. There's an entire wall of screws. It's impossible for me to tell its size just by looking at it." She then says to me, "You will not come at me like that. Your manager would not like that." And she says this in such a way where she's trying to hold herself up as royalty, as if I'm supposed to be afraid of her. I look at her and say, "Well, I can get a manager if you'd like. Maybe one of them can identify the screw by sight." This entitled Karen then looks at me and says, "Don't make me mad today. Just do your job." And it's right about then that I decided to maliciously comply. I realized that I had already told her exactly where the product was that she was looking for. So I look at her with a smug look on my face and I say, "Yes, ma'am, I'll do my job." And with that, I walked away from her with my trolley and proceeded to continue looking for the items on my order. The entitled Karen approaches me again and says, "What are you doing?" I looked at her square in the eye and I said, "I'm doing my job." Now, the best part about this is that an aisle over, one of our assistant managers was actually nearby. With the entitled Karen ranting and stomping around like a toddler, I walked over when I noticed him, and I told him I had two issues. For starters, I can't find the item I need to fulfill this online order. And secondly, this entitled Karen might want to talk to him. He laughed and showed me where the correct size of sheet metal was, and totally ignored this entitled Karen. That is, until she huffed loudly and stormed away. I don't think she liked that my manager did like how I handled the situation, but honestly, that's her problem and not mine. That entitled Karen was super obnoxious. Can you imagine just carrying around a random screw and being like, "What size is this?" Like, if you worked in construction or as a carpenter or something along those lines, you could probably look at that screw and be like, "Oh, it's this certain size." I know people who do that and it's really cool to see. But for the average worker at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that, there's no way they're gonna know that just by looking at it. So this entitled Karen was completely out of line. Like, she literally could have come into that place of business and measured it ahead of time so she knows what she's buying, instead of yelling at this hourly worker who definitely did not deserve that kind of treatment. And also, what was with her basically pretending to be the Hulk? "You're not gonna like me when I'm angry." Like, what, are you gonna start turning green and throwing things? So good for the original poster for basically saying, "Oh, okay, you want me to do my job? Fine, I'll do my job." Because if somebody talked to me like that, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing. And if anything, it was probably really satisfying to watch her storm away, angry that she didn't get her way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius? Check it out, link down below in the description. Today, I messed up by getting matching lobster tattoos with my boyfriend after watching Friends, and I feel really stupid and I really don't know what to do. So this happened a few months ago, but I just found out how bad it was today. So my boyfriend and I are huge fans of the show Friends, and we decided to binge watch the whole series during quarantine. We got to the episode where Phoebe tells Ross that Rachel is his lobster because lobsters mate for life, and we thought it was the cutest thing ever. We've been dating for 2 years, and we were thinking of taking our relationship to the next level. So we thought, why not get matching lobster tattoos to show our love and commitment? Well, we found a tattoo parlor that was open, and they had some good reviews, and so we booked an appointment. We chose a simple design of 2 lobsters holding claws, and we got them inked on our ankles. Now, it hurt a lot, but we were so happy and proud of our tattoos. We took pictures and posted them on Instagram and got a lot of likes and comments from our friends and family. Everyone thought it was adorable and romantic. Fast forward to today, and I was browsing an online forum, and I came across a post that asked, what is something that everyone thinks is true but is actually false? I clicked on it out of curiosity purely, and I saw a comment that said, lobsters don't mate for life. They're actually very promiscuous and will mate with different partners every mating season. I was shocked and confused. I googled it, and sure enough, it was true. Lobsters are not monogamous at all. They're basically the opposite of what Phoebe said. I feel like an idiot. I had just permanently marked myself with a symbol of something that was completely false. I called my boyfriend and I told him the bad news. He seemed to be equally stunned and embarrassed. We both regretted our decision and wish we had done more research before getting the tattoos. Now we're stuck with stupid lobsters that mean absolutely nothing to us. I've got to be honest, I think that's really hilarious. You got a tattoo thinking what was going on was true, but you know what? It ended up being false. And now you're stuck with this tattoo for the rest of your life. That's awful. Unless you want to get it removed or anything like that. In fact, the original poster actually went on to explain more about what happened afterwards. It looks like they had a heart-to-heart last night, and the boyfriend reassured the original poster so much. He said he still adores the lobster tattoos because they represent their love for each other and for Friends. The original poster goes on to explain that Friends is more than just a show to them. It's what brought them together and helped them through very tough times. The boyfriend went on to explain further that the tattoos are a tribute of their passion for each other and for the show, and that's what counts, not some random fact about nature. They will always be meaningful to them, and they are still a nod to the show and a wink to other Friends fans, even if the facts don't line up. And that honestly, in my opinion, is really cool. You're able to turn a negative into a positive. Personally, if that happened to me and I put these tattoos on my body and I thought it meant one thing and then I found out it meant another thing, I would immediately start laughing. I wouldn't take that personally in the slightest. That's a story you can tell for the rest of your life. So in my opinion, you didn't mess up at all. You and your partner did a really fun thing that will mean a lot to both of you moving forward. I pulled my daughter out of a private religious school without consulting my husband, and I did this because of the sketchy nature of this school, as well as the fact that my husband ignored all of my concerns. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my husband and I have a daughter that's 6 years old. We've been married for 6 years, and we dated for about a year before we got married. When my husband and I first started dating, I learned that he grew up in a very religious family. He's not fanatically religious, and he always shared stories about strange things that he's seen at tent revivals, where he would meet people claiming they are healing others from demons, speaking in tongues, and stuff like that. He has said he's not nearly as religious like the rest of his family, which I found reassuring because I grew up in a pretty relaxed family when it came to religion. He even told me how refreshing I was to him because of how secular and open-minded I am. Anytime I've spent time with his family, he always told me not to take anything they say seriously. They really wanted me to convert and join their church, which I didn't want to, and it really was a point of contention. When we got married, it was an overly religious event, but it was only like that so that we could appeal to my mother-in-law so that they wouldn't make a big stink about it. Now, appeasing his parents was mostly only in small doses here and there, so I tolerated it because I loved him. His parents became insufferable and tried to control a lot of decisions when my daughter was born. His mother gave me a lot of garbage about how concerned they were about my daughter being raised by me. They even wanted to homeschool her when it was time for her to go to school, but I shut that garbage down right away. I've talked to him so many times before about how he needs to stand up to his parents and back me up more. He thought of a compromise where we can send her to a private school that is of his religion. I was skeptical, but I was open-minded, and I wanted to meet with the teachers and the faculty at the school. And when I did, they seemed alright. I mean, I had friends that went to religious schools and it did work out. So to keep the peace amongst the family, we enrolled her. I knew I wanted to make sure her home life would be an environment for open-minded thinking. I've expressed this to him, and he told me he would be open to enrolling her to another school if it doesn't work out. She's been going to this school for 2 years now, and anytime I talk to him about my concerns, he just deflects it. I've had her talk to me about the concept of heck, if you know what I mean, asking me if I think her grandfather is going to be there. I recently witnessed her waving her arm slowly in the air, head bowed to the floor, moving to the music when watching TV sometimes. I'm terrified of the indoctrination at such a young age. I've had enough. So I took her out of the school without even talking to my husband first, because he has absolutely no sense of urgency and shuts down the topics immediately. Now, when he found out, he was furious with me and screamed at me and was trying to tell me how much of a nightmare public schools can be, and that one of the teachers at the private school is friends with his mother, and she is going to be telling her everything. Now, this is literally such a nightmare, and I feel sick about subjecting my daughter to all of this conflict and tension. My husband left and said he needed time to process what I did. He's spending Easter with his parents, and I'm alone with my daughter. Now, I'm not lost when it comes to knowing that I want to protect my daughter at all costs. What I'm really unsure about is how to move forward with my relationship. This has been one of the only times I stood my ground, and everything feels like it's crumbling and falling apart. The original poster actually provided us with an update as to what happened next after this experience. This is what they had to say. I am very frustrated with myself for letting things get out of hand like this. My daughter means everything to me, and I'm upset that I didn't stop all of this sooner or saw the warning signs earlier. I know it seems so obvious and I should have known better, but it's hard to explain why it was so hard. I was basically a frog in a pot of water that was very slowly starting to boil. There was a weird fog of war from everything going on that I deluded myself into thinking compromise was possible. My husband's ambivalence to what I find alarming really slowly evolved over time. It wasn't like a light switch. Now, I know that hindsight is 20/20, but I can't help but feel anger to myself. I basically took her out of the school Thursday morning of last week. The night before, we got into an argument when I brought up my discomfort about the school. I know a lot of people thought my breaking point was seeing my daughter praying and swaying, but it was really a culmination of a lot of things. Between the praying, the fire and brimstone mentality of the topics about heck, and the fear I sense coming from her, the awkwardness and the coldness I would get from faculty at the school whenever I picked her up, and she would sometimes spew gibberish or recite Bible passages of which she really doesn't even understand or comprehend any of its actual meaning, and examples like this went on and on. My frustrations boiled over, and my husband refused to talk about it, as he has done several times before over the last 2 years. So the following morning, I just took her out of school. After he screamed at me and argued with me about how public schools are dangerous, he stormed off, and I haven't heard from him since that argument. He's completely missing in action. I've met with a few schools, and I'm already trying to find solutions on that end. I am not worried about finding a less scarring and a less awful environment for her. I really do think there are some really good options that we can pursue. My main worry now is the unpredictable nature and the silence from my husband. My husband has some connections to a few divorce lawyers, so I talked to some in preparation for the worst. Yesterday evening, a man in his late 70s or early 80s stopped by our house. I didn't answer the door because I didn't recognize him. He went on to suspiciously mosey about my property, looking around the house, and then suddenly left. I called the police, and they went around and surveyed, but the man had left before the police arrived. Earlier this afternoon, I went to get the mail, and I saw this man again, and he approached me, and he walked right up to me as if he knew me. He said to me, "I'm just checking on the welfare of the child that lives in this house." I asked him who he was, and he refused to answer me. He then started to mention the name of the psychiatrist that I see, and then mentioned that a little girl being looked after by a young woman with mental illness is a cause of great alarm, something along those lines. Now, for a bit of context, I've been going to a psychiatrist for an anxiety disorder. It's nothing out of hand, and I've gotten a firm grasp on keeping it at bay with medication, and it's honestly been something that's been completely manageable. Now, only my husband knows about this and has any idea that I see a psychiatrist, so I assume his parents know because he knows, and this man obviously must know my husband and his parents. That's my only assumption. I told this man to leave, and I threatened to call the police, and while he did end up leaving, he did say before he left that the girl is going to be protected. I'm going to meet with a lawyer tomorrow and figure out a plan. I'm going to file for a divorce because this has gotten to a point where I feel unsafe. I worry that me being treated for anxiety will be used against me. I have no idea what they are plotting against me, but they are playing mind games with me. I left the house with my daughter, we're safe, and I have a much clearer idea and solution going forward. I'm not going to try and salvage the relationship with my husband, and my main focus is to make sure my daughter is stable and has a safe environment. I'm pretty sure this is the plot of some Jordan Peele movie. Like, this is just creepy. Like, what on earth is going on? This is just scary and creepy and really disturbing. I first off want to say the original poster is 100% in the right. She has every right to be sketched out by the way her 8-year-old daughter is acting, and also the fact that basically she got tricked into letting her kid go to this school. And worst of all, it looks like her husband just doesn't care. He literally doesn't care about the situation in the slightest. He literally let all of this happen because he wanted to appeal to his parents. That is literally the reason for the season in this situation. And this is one of those worst case scenarios where you hoped it wouldn't get to this point, but the cat slowly emerged out of the bag after 2 years of this garbage. And it's also comical that the husband would be like, oh, but public schools are so dangerous. He wasn't saying that when they first signed their daughter up for school. He was so on board of saying, look, if this doesn't work out, we'll send her somewhere else. I mean, where did that plan go, buddy? I thought that was something you wanted to do. But instead, he's letting his mother put a leash on him and basically lead his marriage along. I know if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would do the exact same thing. I would shut down that homeschooling garbage right away, and I probably would have taken my kid out of school as well, especially if I was uncomfortable with it and if my kid was acting like this. That is not normal behavior for an 8-year-old. It's weird, it's creepy, and it's not normal for an 8-year-old. She is literally just mimicking all the people around her, and she's not coming from any place where she understands what she's saying. Like, this is not okay in my opinion. And this is what your mother-in-law wanted? Like, seriously? She clearly just wanted another person to join her church, and since it wasn't you, she's now coming for your daughter. And I seriously can't stress it enough how weird and crazy that is to me. And it's also obvious over the past 2 years that your husband has made a complete 180. At first he was like, listen, don't listen to my parents, they're weird, they're gonna say stuff that's weird, just ignore them when you meet them, all the way to present day, where he's basically regurgitating everything his mom and dad are probably telling him. It's almost like he has no autonomy over his own life, and he's allowing that to happen to his daughter, to your daughter. So with that in mind, I don't blame you for taking the steps that you did. Not only for saying, you know what, I want to get a divorce, but also for telling this old man who's stalking your property to either get lost or the police are going to come along. This is really sad and weird stuff, and hopefully for the sake of you and your daughter, it all works out in the end. Because from the sounds of it, just from what I've read, it seems like your mother-in-law and father-in-law have their hooks completely in your husband. And unless he wakes up and sees exactly what's going to happen to his marriage, I just don't personally see anything happening that would possibly change his mind. An entitled adult expected a perfect car wash from a bunch of little kids trying to make money. And when he got out of his car and started screaming at all of us, my mom got up in his face and put him in his place. Here's what happened. So when I was a kid, I tried my hardest to be a little entrepreneur, and my mother supported me all the way. I had lemonade stands, I sold books of poetry on the corner by my house, and all my neighbors supported me all the way. The summer that I was 8 years old, I decided that lemonade stands didn't generate enough money. So I, with my neighbors that were all my age, decided to not only do a lemonade stand, but also a car wash. This was over a decade ago where children could basically do whatever. My mom gave us access to the hose, bought us some big sponges, and a Home Depot bucket full of soapy water. We charged $5 for a car wash and sold lemonade to the owners while they waited for us to finish. We ended up making over $100 in a week. On the third day, a man pulled up asking for a car wash. We got to work scrubbing the sides, the tires, and the windows. However, being 8 years old, none of us could get up high enough to clean his roof beyond hitting it with the hose. We figured that this wasn't a big deal because, again, he paid us $5. But you know what? We were mistaken. This grown adult man decided that he was going to get out of his car and scream at a bunch of elementary school children because we did not scrub down the roof. He screamed that he wasn't going to pay us because he had not gotten his money's worth. My mother sat on the front steps the entire time to watch over all of us while we worked. However, she had gone inside to use the bathroom right before this happened. When she heard him screaming, she ran out. Now, a little backstop about my mom, she is one tough lady. An openly gay woman, she's a cancer survivor, and a complete mama bear. She was not gonna stand for this. This 5'3" delivery lady got in his face and screamed back something along the lines of basically calling him a jerk. She said, "Why would you ever expect a professional job from 8-year-olds? You're being charged $5 and you are going to pay them or there's gonna be problems." After she said that, I have never seen a grown man look so intimidated. He ended up giving us a $20 bill and told us to keep the change. He then got back in his car and he drove away. So with all things considered, I truly love my mom. Your mom is awesome. And that guy in the car was an obnoxious jerk. Like seriously, what was he thinking? These are 8-year-olds trying to scrub down your stupid car. You can't possibly expect a good job out of that, right? These are literally just kids trying to make money. So to have the audacity to try and start screaming at children, all because you don't think they're doing a good job, truly makes you the biggest jerk in the world. 2 entitled parents steal seats at a theater, refusing to leave and go to another seat. Things got so bad that I threatened to call security if they seriously thought they could steal these seats from other patrons. Here's what happened. So to start things out, picture this. I'm a part-time host at a theater, working in the busiest cinema in the city. It's a Friday night, so it's extra busy, and I've just got done with stocking up one of the storerooms. I'm asked to go deal with a problem in one of the screens as retail is too busy and they can't spare anybody. I'm led to a group of nice women who were very apologetic about taking me away from my job, which is totally fine. I hate my job anyways, and this is a wonderful distraction. They explained there were people sitting in their assigned seats and were refusing to move. Now, the way our cinema worked was that there were 2 rows of assigned premiere seats in the center of the screen and everything else was unassigned. You sit wherever you want. The assigned seats are clearly labeled as such. You're also told when you buy your tickets and when you get them checked to sit anywhere but the premiere seats. So it's not difficult to figure out how things worked. Well, I walked into the screen with the women following behind me and it was packed. There were definitely spare seats, but you'd be hard pressed to find 2 or more together. I walk up to the premiere rows and figure out which seats these ladies have from their tickets, and I tell them to wait on the edge while I go talk to the seat thieves. To add on to all of this, the film was literally about to start. The trailers were over and there were a couple of ads before things kicked off, so I honestly didn't have much time. Anyways, I do the awkward shuffle to get past people until I'm facing the dad of a family of 4. He rolls his eyes when he sees me, because I don't think he expected the group of women to escalate things in this way. I explained that I believe they're in the wrong seats, as the women stood just at the edge of where they were meant to be seating. He denies it and says these are his family seats. I asked to see his tickets, and sure enough, he's got standard ones and can sit anywhere but the premiere seats. I point out his mistake and I tell him that him and his family will need to move and find other places to sit. The mom chimes in now and says that the group of women have only just got here, right as the film is about to start, whereas they've been sitting here since before the trailers were even on, so they shouldn't be forced to move. I explained that the women paid extra for the privilege of being able to arrive right before the film starts and still have good seats. Plus, if the family really had been here since before the trailer started, they would have had the pick of the entire cinema to sit in, minus the premiere seat, so their mistake was on them. At this point, as you can probably expect, the dad gets very angry. He raises his voice to just below yelling and tells me his family isn't moving. They were here first, and the women will have to sit somewhere else. The teenagers they had with them looked like they wanted the floor to swallow them whole. I didn't yell at the guy, but I did say I wasn't moving until they did, and if I had to, I would stand directly in front of him for the entire film. I also threatened to call security, but that was a big old bluff. We don't have security. At this point, the kids were starting to gently suggest to their parents that they need to move, but the mom and dad were not having it, and both started loudly arguing with me. The dad started demanding that I find them new seats. I told him I wouldn't be doing that. I wasn't allowed to start reshuffling the entire cinema, especially when it's 2 minutes before the film starts. And I'm definitely not going to do that because it's their mistake. I told them that they would have to sit separately, and I'm sorry, but that's just how it goes. At this point, the mom is also now insisting that they need to move, and the people around us are starting to get annoyed as well. The dad finally realizes that he's not going to win this, and the entire family gets up and moves elsewhere. I awkwardly shuffle back down the aisle towards the women, who were incredibly apologetic and thankful, and I told them it's no big deal, and that I love doing stuff like that. And to tell you the truth, I absolutely do love telling entitled people off, but it was an overwhelming and adrenaline-spiking experience, and I ended up having a small cry in the storeroom afterwards. All in all, things went well, and the family didn't complain any further. I have no idea whether they managed to find seats next to each other, but I can only assume that they didn't after the scene they caused. If I was sitting in that theater, I definitely would not want to help out a family like that either. These entitled parents were being just super obnoxious. Like, they easily could have picked any other seats, but they wanted the premiere ones because they thought nobody was going to show up. Like, that's exactly what was going through their head. They thought they were getting a good deal because nobody was going to show up. And you know what? Just as the original poster said it, that is completely on them. They should have known better, and they should have just gotten a seat, I don't know, one row behind them. Like, did they really have to steal the premiere seats? And now they all have to sit by themselves. And with all things considered, especially considering their horrible attitude, the entitled parents especially got exactly what they deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius? Check it out, link down below in the description. My friend's HOA gives them fines simply because we tried to check the oil in his driveway. So we decided to maliciously comply, and we got revenge in the funniest way possible. Here's what happened. So back in high school, I was all about my car. Don't get me wrong, it was a rolling piece of garbage, but it was my car. And while it did have a trade-in value of maybe $5, it was still my car. I was learning how to take care of it, and by that, I mean I found out where the dipstick was and how to pull it out. One day after school, I drove over to my friend's place. We jumped out, popped the hood, and pulled the dipstick. We checked the oil and it was fine, and so we then put the hood back down. I also had no idea what an HOA was, nor what it meant. I was just a happy, ignorant teenager, eager to demonstrate how responsible I was with my wheels. A few days go by, and we're hanging out at my friend's place when his mom comes home. She starts to give us the business in a tone of voice that basically says I'm annoyed but trying not to be. She says that she received a warning from the HOA regarding repairing cars in your driveway, complete with a photo of my piece of garbage car with the hood up. Really, she was being pretty good, though clearly very annoyed. We explained that we weren't repairing anything and that I was just checking the oil levels and didn't even have any tools. The picture was just with a hood up. She softened quite a bit, and the focus of her annoyance shifted from us to the HOA, since it is entirely reasonable for anyone to check the level of the oil in a car. She finds her copy of the HOA rules, and we read them together. Sure enough, there's a bylaw that says you can't repair a car in the driveway. I protest that I wasn't repairing anything. I was just checking the oil. Reading the exact rules on exactly what was forbidden sparked an idea. I look at my friend, raise an eyebrow, and I say to them, "Fight the power?" And we say in unison, "Fight the power." I propose my plan to his mom and ask for permission, since she's going to have to deal with all the fallout. She is on board, since she thinks that this is supremely stupid, and we set it all in motion. And this is right when the malicious compliance begins. So every day after school, my friend and I drove my piece of garbage machine to his place, parked it in their driveway, raised the hood, and just looked at the engines. We didn't have tools, and we weren't even near them. We didn't check the oil. We didn't so much as touch them, nor wipe them down with a rag. All we did was expose them to the birds, the skies, and God above to just let them breathe. After a while, I got bored, so I started setting up an easel and drawing my engine 10 minutes at a time. My friend had to one-up me, so he decided that he needed to take some tasteful artistic photos with the engine. He judged the best photos would be him laying over the engine shirtless, stroking it and fake kissing it. Just absurd, over-the-top, moronic high schooler stuff. Predictably, the HOA was on us like stink on garbage. The warnings quickly turned into fines, complete with pictures of both vehicles with their hoods up. Then, more pictures with mine with its hood up and an easel in front. Then, even more pictures with my friends with his hood up and him laying on the engine compartment and me taking pictures of him with a camera. Soon enough, his mom let us know that it was time for the monthly HOA meeting. Of course, all three of us had to go in person to protest the fines. So the motley pair of us show up along with his mom and his mom's stack of fine notices. I bring along my engine drawing, and we printed some of my friend's engine photos larger than normal. After a while, it was new business time, and my friend's mom steps up. I'm pretty sure they expected her to play the "my son and his friend are morons" card, but nope, not a chance. She politely but firmly attested that she was being sent fines for something that isn't in the bylaws, and asked the board to stop. One of the board members spoke up, saying that working on cars was against the bylaws, and clearly that's what's going on since both hoods are up. And oh, you should have seen their faces when she corrected them, that the bylaws said no repairs were allowed, and also there weren't repairs going on in any of the pictures, since no tools were visible, and that we were just doing art projects for school. Even longer faces were seen when she showed my my drawings of the engine, along with the pictures that had date stamps on them. The HOA president called for a 5-minute recess, during which the board huddled in a corner of the room. After the recess, the president succinctly said, "Ma'am, we are going to dismiss all your fines. Have a nice evening." We near danced out of that meeting room. Being the obnoxious little jerks that my friend and I were, we had to do the drawings and photo routine a few more times just to make sure they weren't going to send more fines. Wisely enough, they didn't send any more fines, and me and my friend came out on top in the funniest way possible. HOAs are so annoying. As someone who deals with an HOA constantly, it really does suck. They monitor what you're doing and they're super annoying to deal with. So you definitely have my compassion when you have to deal with these weirdos. And also, it's so stupid that just because the hood was up, they assume that, yeah, you must have been doing repairs. Like, that is seriously so dumb. There's literally no reason for that, and there's no reason to try and make these dumb rules just to appease to whatever power control you want to have. But on the other end of that, the way you handled this was absolutely hilarious. I would have never thought to do any kind of drawing or pictures just to try and prove them wrong and be like, nope, we definitely were not working on our car. But in the end, it worked out, and honestly, this was a really funny way to solve this problem. I am highly uncomfortable with my boyfriend's best female friend, and I seriously at this point don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my boyfriend has a female best friend from college who makes me very uncomfortable. They have been friends for around 10 years now and have been pretty close, but they've never dated. But he has admitted to me that he used to have a crush on her, and in college would go to her apartment at night in the hopes of hooking up with her, and it just never happened. This girl, who we will call Jane, that's not her real name, is the kind of girl who flirts with guys for attention and plays dumb to seem cute. I have always felt weird about the way she interacts with my boyfriend. One example is that he invited a group of friends over to watch a football game once, and it was pretty cold out, and everyone was in hoodies and sweatshirts. Jane showed up in short shorts and a tank top. Later in the evening, someone complimented her on her outfit, and she said she only wore it for my boyfriend, which I thought was very odd. After months of trying to be friendly with this girl, I got fed up. She has never asked me a question about myself, never made an effort to get to know me, but is always following my boyfriend around. I tell my boyfriend this, and how weird she is with me, and how some of the things he said about her make me uncomfortable, and while he was kind of defensive at first, eventually he seemed to understand and assure me that it wasn't something I should worry about. Jane went to Europe a few months ago and returned recently. I don't follow her on social media, so I didn't know she was back until she randomly showed up at my boyfriend's birthday party. When she showed up, I was talking to other people, and my boyfriend took that time to tell all of his friends and all of my friends that I hate her and to keep her away from me, which I did not appreciate, as it made it much weirder for me, and it felt like he was distancing she and I so I wasn't included, maybe making it easier for him to hang out with her without anyone mentioning it to me going forward. I would have preferred if he had said nothing and just let me handle it privately, instead of telling everyone that we know how I actually feel about her. His reactions made me so uncomfortable. I looked through his phone while he was sleeping, and I found texts from her the week prior, where he must have seen that she was back in town, and he texted her saying, "Oh, you're back? You want to grab lunch?" And her response was that she was busy, but then sent a text saying, "I finished my stuff early if you want to still grab lunch." He never replied, and I don't know if they ever did get lunch. He also did not mention this to me at all, but while we were fighting a few weeks later about how he dealt with the situation, I asked if he knew she was back in town, and he said no. He had no idea she was even in the country, so he just straight up lied to me. I didn't even tell him that I knew they had talked before his birthday. I don't know what to do. I have an ex-boyfriend who acted the exact same way with a female friend, who ended up cheating on me with her. So the situation is very triggering for me, and I seriously don't know what to do. This is really disappointing the way that your boyfriend's acting, because honestly, it seems like he's encouraging this behavior. Like he is doing literally nothing to set up boundaries with this female friend, and is in fact just making it so he has a second girlfriend, because that's exactly the way this seems. Also, the way that your boyfriend handled the situation by basically announcing to everybody that no, you don't like this lady, now gives the perception to everybody else around you that you are difficult and you are a mean girlfriend, which is not the case. You're literally just trying to set boundaries. Your boyfriend crossed a line and he is absolutely lying to you. And it's also incredibly unfortunate. He would rather have this pick-me girl around who's clearly just playing games with him and flirting with him but not actually flirting with him and all this other garbage, as opposed to being dedicated to his girlfriend. And that's not your fault, that's on him. So if there's any kind of change that needs to happen, trust me me when I say this, it needs to come from your boyfriend. An entitled Karen at my work literally makes problems for me as well as the rest of the office, forcing me to maliciously comply and find some kind of solution to all these problems. Here's what happened. So for starters and a bit of context, I work in IT. I don't deal with generic computer problems. I'm an expert in complicated programs at work. Almost every department in my work uses this program. When bugs or issues are found, I do my best to fix it myself. If I can't fix it, then I forward the issue to our vendor who manages the program for us. Taking new versions of this program is a big deal. We just don't take it. We install the new version in a non-production environment, and every department must test it and sign off on it. This process can take 1 to 2 months to complete. Now enter our Karen of this story. It's good to note that dealing with her has always been an issue. She always gives me garbage for bugging her when I have questions. I thought it was personal, but I asked other people in IT about her, and they confirmed that she is always a pain in the butt to deal with. We were 1 day away from taking an upgrade, and this upgrade was important, as it had new features that were needed for new clients, plus several extremely needed bug fixes. This is after we went through testing and got signed off from every department to take this version. Of course, the entitled Karen of the office opens up a help desk ticket on the new version we just got. Now, it's a big enough issue to cancel the upgrade, submitted literally in the final hour. Needless to say, the higher ups were very upset, and I got huge pressure to submit this to the vendor as soon as possible. The help desk ticket stated the issue, and at the bottom of the ticket was the sentence that said, "You may not contact me about this issue. There will be no instant messaging me, no calling me, no emailing me, or standing next to my desk." So I reviewed the ticket, even though I was a little bit confused. And guess what? The issue was a user error. So this is where my malicious compliance came in. Since I couldn't talk to her about it, I went straight to the higher ups, the same people pressuring me to submit the issue. I told them the problem and how I wasn't allowed to contact her about it. So they said that they would take care of it. About an hour later, the entitled Karen comes sheepishly to my desk, and this was probably the nicest I've ever seen her. I pointed out the issue to her, and she said that she would review it. 5 minutes later, I get a message from her saying to close the ticket. And then the upgrade proceeded as planned. This happened several years ago, and I wish I could say that she got fired for this little stunt, but that just didn't happen. However, I got the next best thing. She was no longer in charge of testing. In fact, I haven't gotten a single help desk ticket from her ever since. That entitled Karen was literally just being annoying. She not only made the problem itself, but then basically forced your hand to go to the higher ups and be like, "Hey, can you take care of this? Because this is obnoxious." And she's literally delaying our upgrades. And you know what? If I was in the original poster's shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. This entitled Karen is literally notorious for being incredibly rude, and I am not about to be caught in her crossfire. So hopefully the next time she submits a ticket error, she'll be a little bit nicer in her message. My boyfriend is suddenly demanding that we should get married and have some kids. And this is literally coming out of nowhere, and it's kind of got me freaked out, and at this point, I don't know what to do. So I have always felt like I'm much more invested in my relationship than my boyfriend is. We've been dating for just over a year, and he is a workaholic, and also very keen on having his own me time. I'm the same way most of the time. However, I have expressed frustration at times that we don't see each other more often, and that we never really do anything together except have dinner once or twice a week. He will seldom stay over, and when he does stay over, he will be out the front door before 7 a.m. the next morning to go work on his hobby projects. I barely ever see him in the daytime. In general, I've always felt like I'm putting 10 times more time and effort into the relationship than he does. And I know that sounds really stupid. If there is a crisis of any sort, you can trust him to completely disappear. For obvious reasons, I've totally given up on the idea that this will ever become a serious relationship. The situation actually suits me great because I suddenly have a lot of stuff going on in my life, meaning I don't really have time for a full-on relationship anyways. In other words, I am quite happy to just dawdle along in this not quite relationship for now. Anyways, a couple of days ago, out of the blue, he just totally lost it with me because I haven't begged him to get married to me or to have children. Apparently, getting married and having children is now a must-have for him, and it needs to happen as soon as possible. I asked him why he has this sudden change of heart to make this relationship serious all of a sudden. He got really offended, saying he thought it was always serious. Now, to be clear, here, I have to basically beg to see him for even an hour a week, and now he is angry that I haven't suggested marriage and kids to him? Should I run away from this relationship? It feels like I'm being manipulated somehow, but I'm honestly not sure what to do. This relationship definitely sounds incredibly sketchy. Like the way your boyfriend's acting is just not normal. Like, let me get this straight. He went from being super passive in the relationship to suddenly being all on board and really wanting to get married really quickly. Like, really, what did change in this relationship? He hasn't been around in the relationship in the slightest, and he's been just doing other things besides paying attention to you. But suddenly, it's like he did a 180, and now he's all obsessed with you. He wants to get married, he wants to have kids right away. And that is super sketchy, and that's a big red flag in my opinion. If I was in your shoes and I was getting this kind of pressure all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, I would be pumping the brakes right away. I would be like, whoa, we need to take a step back. Where is this coming from? You've never acted like this. This is incredibly weird behavior, and it's not something I'm ready to do. So hopefully if you have that kind of conversation with him, it goes well. Because from the sounds of it, he doesn't seem like the most stable person to talk to, and hopefully with all things considered, including his attitude, this conversation goes well in some kind of way. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.